All right, Be Your Elite Podcast, episode 3.
Yes.
Back with Bethany Schwenk. Is it Schwenk or is it Schwenky?
It's Schwanky.
I don't like that. Let's change it to Schwenk.
All right. We have absolutely no idea how you're supposed to say it. So.
Oh, so he's just making it up.
No, the mom made it up. The father said schwank.
Oh, so he's trying to like church it fancy.
Hmm.
That's weird.
Don't know.
Schwenk. Let's just keep it simple.
All right. Change my name. It's cool.
Schwenk.
Hail.
Yeah, so we were on this idea of purpose is obviously one of these like big topics, and I think we talk about this a lot, like, you know, the purpose in life, and I don't know, the meaning of life and what we're supposed to be doing. And there's so much information out there and so many books, and I wrote about it this week in the sense that we were, again, you brought it up, I think, last time, where it's like we just oversimplify everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then it like is a weird conversation because you think that it frustrates some people because you're like, well, it's not that simple. And I'm like,
Frustrates me. 'Cause it's
Okay,
very
so
black and
frustrates-
white for you.
Well, it's not like we're not taking into account all the gray area,
Mm-hmm.
because those are the factors that weigh on it.
That's true. I take them into account, but I think you have to simplify them to get to the point first.
Anyways, but I mean, I think that's part of the problem, is that we're trying to find so many intricacies and so much complexity in life. And I'm not trying to say that there's not those things in it, but are we making a whole bunch of it up?
Most likely, yes.
I would, and that's what's weird to me, is that we can recognize, or at least acknowledge, that we are probably making it more complicated, in the sense that we got to have this, we should buy that, should be married by this age, should buy a house by this time, this
Yep.
house should be this big, I should drive this type of car, and if I don't, I should be working towards this next thing. I should be wearing these types of clothes, and, you know, whatever none of those things really like make sense to me in
Yeah.
a weird way. Like,
All the social constraints.
yeah, fashion and like, I think I'm function based.
Yeah.
Where like my truck serves a function, like it holds my bikes around, and I mean, it's a nice truck, but I'm not like,
You're an aesthetic person, though.
in what regard?
Like, you designed this room.
Yeah, but all this stuff in here is like, well, first off, most of it was bought at Goodwill for like this table right
Not
here.
saying
for
it was expensive.
this
I'm saying that you appreciate good aesthetics.
Yeah, but when I looked at it initially, it was like, I need a coffee table to hold dinners and drinks and whatever. This meets the function.
Yep.
The look of this invokes a specific emotion in me.
Yep.
So I get that. Like, I get where we were talking about like crystal healing and essential oils at one point, and it was like, there's no scientific backing to any of that kind of stuff. And we're like, well, wait, hold on a second. If we stand back and look at it, if the image of the idea of an amethyst sparks a specific emotion in somebody, then there's you have to accept that placebo is a piece of it.
Placebo's huge. I
So
think
that
that's recognized in science.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But and I think that's where it's really hard, because some people will get so wrapped around like, oh, there's no merit to that. There's no that, and that's how I was. And then I was
Yeah.
like, well, wait a second. If like someone's holding something and looking at it, and it's reminding them to stay present in a specific emotion that they're trying to acknowledge, then I guess that's,
Yeah.
how was watching a movie any different?
No, that's true. I mean, I don't think placebo necessarily means fake or not real. I think it just means from your mind. I don't know.
Well, and that's exactly kind of what we're talking about today, in the sense that, man, that was really good.
It is, right? I'm worried
So-
about my microphone, but
So we were in Portland, Oregon, and there was a distillery there. So I'm going to give a shout out to these guys, I guess, for the 3 people that listen to this podcast. Still Wagon Distillery, the Devil's Own. And this is their gold rum. This was we did a tasting with these guys. Not like a big rum drinker, but he was like, oh, this is aged in bourbon barrels from Texas. So let me try that. And
It is really good.
it's like a sweet bourbon almost.
Sweet bourbon, but it's very smooth.
Yeah, really good. I'm gonna drink a lot of that. So anyways, back to that emotions and the placebos, and how it pertains to purpose and how we overcomplicate and get things moving. Because there's this like, I think when I first heard purpose, it was a lot that was designed around our gym. It was like, oh, our purpose is to lead by example in life, to inspire others to live their elite life. And it was, we got so wrapped around the idea that like our product was our purpose. Like we have to keep creating this fitness program that people can come and do. And if we really started looking at it, and this is where I've been really, obviously since December of this year, but really starting to understand that like what was actually driving all of my actions all the time. What was the common denominator with all that stuff? And for me, it was relationships across the board.
Yeah.
Like no matter what, it was either like there was like partnership. So there's, for me, I think that there's a couple of different ways I look at it. There's 3 areas in relationships as they revolve around purpose for me. So I always talk about creating purpose. So I guess, you know, for that piece, that was some of the stuff that I wrote on, is that you always, you know, I'm looking for my purpose. I'm trying to find my purpose. It's like you're not taking responsibility for
Creating it.
Yeah, creating it. Like creating it is then it's yours.
Yeah.
It's not something that you fell into. And I think when you don't create it, it sets up this area of doubt. There's almost a little small piece of doubt of like, oh, it just fell into my lap. And you don't necessarily, I'm not saying that you don't believe in it, do, but I'm just saying the way I tick, I was like, if I just waited for something to fall in my lap, I'm always second guessing how it got there. I'm like, well, why did that come here? Why is this a part of my life now? What is going on? And maybe just not accepting the fact that maybe it was fate or karma or whatever. I just like the idea of, oh no, I created all the opportunities and the situations around that brought X in front of me. Yeah. And it allowed me to just create a concrete, systematic idea of like, no, this was yours. You created it. There was no, it almost gave me a sense of control, which we always joke about, that we have to accept the fact that there is no control.
There's no control.
There's no control in life. Like there's always going to be something that gets flipped on its head somewhere. But at least the idea that you have, and so that's where I was like, well, it wasn't control about the outcomes of things. It was really control of the way I thought about myself around my purpose or around my emotions or where I was with my family. I always felt like the one thing that I could control was my reactions and my perspective and my idea of whether that was a good or a bad thing. Yeah. Do the goods outweigh? And it's like this weird optimistic personality where like there's always good in everything.
Yeah, I don't share that trait, but yeah.
So what do you think part of
my purpose?
No, your thing with that, where you don't share that trait, where do you feel like you weigh more on the side of, because I think a lot of people do this and I think it's just natural human nature, and I think there is seasons where people will like, oh, everything's just going really good for me right now. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, everything's just going really bad for me right now. Do you feel like you tip on one side more than the other?
I think I'm pessimistic as by nature. I hate that about myself, but I feel it pretty deeply. I was having a conversation with someone at work yesterday, and we were talking about the difference between leading from a posture of hope and positivity versus leading from a posture of so transparent that you don't shield your team from the risks and the issues going on. And we were talking about how with me, I struggle with that because I feel so badly the dishonesty and not being completely transparent. But I was listening to her talk and she was saying the same things that I was saying. But when she paused, my mind interjected a negative adjective, whereas the next word that came out was positive, and was like, man, it's just really training yourself at a very basic linguistic level to change how you think.
That's an interesting perspective there. I like that, where our language in our own heads.
Mm-hmm.
It's not thoughts, it's language. It's
Yep.
like, why are we replacing with she's getting ready to say I'm poor here instead of I can improve this.
Yeah. Yep.
And that invokes the emotion that like poor is like, oh, you just suck at that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Need to improve means like, oh, you're pretty good at it.
It's a growth mentality.
But there's growth. Yeah, there's more
Yeah.
of a growth mentality of it instead of just kind of beating people to an extent. I like that idea of, language is important. Maybe I do that subconsciously. I just have no idea.
Yeah. I just have to think about it a lot and make sure that.
But does that get exhausting?
Absolutely.
Where you're like constantly like, nope, it's not.
Yep. And it's hard to like give impromptu talks when you're always like second guessing.
Well, we talked a lot about that a little bit too, where it was like statistically in your life, what was because a lot of us are like, man, worst case scenario, if I do this or I make this decision or whatever, it's like, well, like statistically in your life, how many really shitty moments have actually happened?
Depends
So
on
it's
your
like,
life.
you know what I mean though?
Yeah.
Like if you really if you broke it down by moments, which is seconds of every day or hours or weeks or days, say you even just broke it down by every day that you've been alive.
Yep.
Statistically speaking, you've had way more good days than you did
Absolutely.
bad days. If you talk about actual
Yeah.
trauma, emotional trauma, physical trauma, not just like you woke up and I went to work and some guy cut me off
Yeah.
on the way to work and then my boss looked at me funny and I wasn't quite sure what that was and I got this weird email. Like that isn't trauma per se. We're just perceiving that as trauma. But if you really look at it statistically, it's like it probably outweighs it 99%
Absolutely.
to the other side, which is such a weird thing.
We were talking to our son the other night about like fear of going to bed or fear of sleep. And when I was little, it was always fear someone was going to break into our house. And I was thinking like 35 years of being afraid of that every night, and it's never happened.
Never happened, yeah.
Why do you waste time on fears that...
Well, that's the difference of like being aware of it and putting energy into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we joke about that all the time. I'm like, dude, that energy that you're spending right now, is it helping whatever thing you're concerned about and yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Is it helping yourself? Or is it just helping the other thing? Like, if it's not helping both of you and it, or at minimum just helping you,
Yeah.
or worst case scenario helping it, but at a detriment to yourself. Like how is that energy being expended into the world? Was always my question to you. Like,
true.
Where's that going?
It's hard for me to see at first, but yeah, you're right.
It's an interesting. It's not about being right, Bethany. Here we go with the right stuff. But
Yeah.
so back to purpose. Without all of us kind of diving into a lot of those like complexities of life that we make this thing out to be, I really this year started having to like kind of step back and be like, what are the actual most important things to life in me? And it's like, yeah, my special forces team and my service to the military and this country and stuff is very important to me. But the one thing that I wrote about is like, that's going to end one day. Like it's inevitable. It's got like, I can't do that forever, whether just, the way the regulations work that like you have to retire at a certain time, whether that's 30 or 40 years or whatever, like no matter what, it's going to end. Physically, your body breaks down and stops.
Yep.
Or you just don't want to do it anymore. But it's like so many of us put this idea of these, I'm an SF guy and that's a part of my life. And if I lose that, that's like this big, huge chunk. Like what happens then? And most people would say like, yeah, I found purpose through my work. Mm-hmm. And that kind of troubles me a little bit because, one, not everybody's going to love what they do. I don't know what the stats are, what the argument is if you actually polled, let's just use the U.S. in general, but like who actually genuinely is passionate and loves, and says, oh, my work is my purpose. So you have a lot of these like big motivational things, find what you love, do what you love, and all those other kind of things. But I think you need to figure out where that time is spent. So like I think when people hear that initially, they're like, oh shit, I shouldn't be this construction worker. I love playing the guitar and I should be in a band touring the nation. And it's like, well, what if you're not very good at playing the guitar and nobody wants to listen to you? It's like you still have to pay your bills. And I understand if like you want to drop everything that you're doing and chase your dream and your passion and all that other kind of stuff. And then it's like, that's where you have to step back and create some honesty of like, well, hold on, what type of commitments have I gone down a road on so far?
Yeah.
And that's where family gets sticky. Like, I think if you're 18, 19, 25-year-old single, whatever, and you're just like, I have nobody
Living for yourself.
relying on me but me. I'm just going to chase whatever.
Yeah.
And then at what point is that like a detriment to yourself to where you're like, you're 50.
Depends on who you are. It could
Well, and
never be.
I think that's the scary part where I go back to that like common denominator for me is relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So if you spend 20 years chasing this idea of this purpose of this task that you're supposed to do, you miss out on all the experiences of relationships.
That's true. Unless your relationships are part of that experience, but yeah.
Yeah, but how, and I'm not saying these are good or bad, but how many of them have longevity in it? Which is always a scary thing to me. I think the majority of us, one, don't want to be alone. Like, we don't want to feel alone at minimum. So it's like, how do we search and at least feel like we're a part of something, whether that be a fitness community or, if you play music, you have a group that you get together with on the weekends and you guys play music together, whatever the case may be. But it always ends up with some type of relationship with somebody somewhere for most of us.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's where I really started stepping back and going like, well, is purpose now people and the relationships? And I think that for me personally, as I sit down and really try to like figure out what that is, I think it's service to the relationships and the experiences that you gain out of them.
Okay.
And so what that does is it allows you to have temporary relationships that are deep and connected.
Yeah.
That you gain a ton of experiences with that may one day end and may one day move on. But that idea is that there's billions of people on the planet and there's always somebody else that you can go into service to
connect with them.
To connect and create more experiences with. And so there's a lot of places that you can do that. And so that's why I say creating purpose is now creating the idea in your head that you're in service of those relationships and the experiences based on the situations that you set up.
Yeah.
And they'll always change. So whether your careers change, and so these people now, it's like, oh, well, I've had 10 jobs in the past 10 years. It's like, okay. Did you honor the commitments and the relationships and the experiences where you were? And then did they add to your life? Did they bring you joy and happiness and peace, or were they things that were toxic and tore you down and put you in situations that created failures? And what did you learn from those specific things?
Yeah.
So they always revert back to somebody. You always had to interact with another human being to create some sort of success and some sort of failures, unless your one whole goal in life was to run a 100-mile marathon or something, and you can
by yourself. Yeah.
You can crush that by yourself theoretically. I mean, you should have people waiting for you at specific distances to like give you some food and stuff,
and run with you. Yeah.
And then that's a temporary, fleeting moment that eventually ends, right? So, where do you create purpose that has longevity? And I think the number one linchpin for me on that was none of this exists, and none of it's good. None of it has its highest potential unless the relationship with yourself is firing on all cylinders.
That's what scares me.
Well, so I was trying to figure out a way to like, how can you just say this that sets a point? And as I was thinking about it, the thing for me, it was if I had a mediocre relationship with myself, then every relationship outside of that would be mediocre.
That's really scary.
And if you really honestly think about that, like if you're trying to figure out how can my marriage be better, how can my relationship with my kids be better, how can with my colleagues at work, if you're trying to bridge the gap on these things and grow these relationships, what's normally missing out of there? There's always some kind of misfiring connection of your emotional connection and relationship between the two of them. And the roadblock for that connection is your relationship with yourself, which is going to bring out how authentic are you actually? Because someone can be partially authentic. I show you pieces of me. There's some of this. I lie about that, but I'm selling it as much as possible as face value to make it be my truth, even though I may not necessarily be my thing.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I did it with religion for a
Years,
really long
yeah.
time. I was like trying to sell everybody that, like, yeah, dude.
So how do you, I mean, I know how to work on relationships, but how do you work on that relationship with yourself?
That's a great question, right? Well, we always circle back to the number one, what's the foundation for everything, which is honesty.
Yeah.
And the three keys to honesty, right? Like it's got to be brutal. And that's the hardest part for most people. I've had a lot of people reach out to me recently and like, where do I start? I'm like, well, you just have to be brutally honest with yourself and every committed relationship that you're in right now. I don't like this about you. I don't like this. Can you tell me what things are bothering you about me? Here's things that I know I genuinely lie about. Like if I'm saying I want to get to fitness is always an easy example for me just because it's so easy to explain. But it's like I say I want to get here, but I always hit snooze on my alarm clock 3 or 4 extra times. And then every day at lunch, I say I'm not going to get, these extra macros I'm not supposed to be eating. And I smash them 1 or 2 times a week. It's like, okay, I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but over the course of 5 years, all those little micro lies add up into a very big thing that now you're dealing with the consequences of it. So I think you have to sit down and really peel back the layers of yourself of like, what are the things that I say I want, that I actually want to do, that I know are important to me. And so this is where, like, if I start looking at big picture, like I break things down into 3 areas, which is creating purpose, honoring your body, and then being a student forever, a forever student. And so if you really look at that, it's like people say, "Oh, well, if I just get fit, I'll be fixed." It's like, sort of.
Yeah.
Like you still have to go into the room that you've trapped all of your negative emotions over the past 35 years and look at them and figure out what they were trying to teach you. What types of walls and fears are they sticking in front of you now that are preventing you to execute on whatever?
Yeah.
People are always like, what's the example of that? I have no idea. In my own life, in the sense that like anything that scared me, I just did.
Yeah.
Everything.
That's the opposite of most people.
Which is, I try to understand it, but I don't. I think it's because I'm curious, super curious. I would rather know how bad that's going to hurt, or like I would rather know that, or was it really that hard of a task?
Okay.
And fail at it 100 times than not. Like I'm more curious about the process of it.
Yeah.
And the feelings and the emotions attached to anything.
Okay.
So anytime anybody tried to teach me something or offer me something, I was like, I would just stop everything I was doing and just like, yeah, let's say, like the other day, I was hanging out with the Red Horn guys the other day, and I don't know shit about brewing beer, but he was like, hey man, you should come back here and check out. They're getting ready to like dump some hops and do some other stuff. And it was like, I was trying to stay on schedule, but at the same time, I was like, well,
I really want to see that.
Yeah, the next 2 hours really aren't that important. I'm gonna go in here and see what this.
Yeah.
Because I was just curious about it. Like I'm not like intrigued to want to go brew beer or anything anymore. But those micro moments of like being in that moment and someone willing to share an experience with me about what they're passionate about, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, man. And I'm genuinely in it, and I genuinely want to know. One, I'm curious about your passion, and I want to support you in that because you're a friend of mine. And I value and honor this relationship. And this is another piece of what you're going to show me that I can be curious about, understand. Which is, again, that piece of like, you should always be trying to learn something new daily.
Absolutely.
Just because you're going to gain some knowledge around something doesn't mean I have to go brew beer now. At least I have an understanding of it now.
Yeah. I think my thing is, I'm curious, not in the same way that you're curious, but I'm extra curious about lots of things. But I keep my mind occupied with learning all those new things rather than think about the issues that I probably should be fixing. So me being trapped alone with those emotions would probably be the worst thing in the world. But
Well, and that's where with that, some of the stuff we talked about, I remember I was like 3 things at a time
yeah,
until we create habits around those.
prioritize.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is like all habits have to start consciously. It has to be a conscious effort every day.
Yep.
And the problem with habits with people is they just try to take on too many at a time. And the smallest thing could be like get up and drink 8 ounces of water first thing.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, I can do that plus 9 other things. It's like, no, you can't.
Nope.
I promise you can't. You think you can.
1 to
There
3.
probably are some of them. So I think that's where when we start identifying those 3 different things, it's like we talked about this all the time. It's like I want to start fitness. People always ask me like, where do I start with fitness? I'm like, well, I think you should move every day. And people get like, oh man, I go to the gym every day. No,
Nope, just move.
Move
Yeah.
every day. Mow your own lawn. Go to the pool and swim for 30 minutes. Walk around the
Take a
block
walk,
with
yeah.
your dog. Like move every day disconnected from physical things. And that's just you going out and acknowledging and honoring your body that like, oh, this thing is designed to move and I'm going to take advantage of it while it's been given to me. So I tell people like the first habit you want to create is to carve out 30 minutes, whether it's in the morning or in the afternoon, and move. Don't lift weights. Don't do anything. Just go walk for 30 minutes because now you've at least created a habit around a block every day at 4:30. From 4:30 to 5, I move.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start going, okay, we've done that for 3 months now and it's automatic. You don't even think about it anymore. Now it's a subconscious habit. That's where you want to try to get everything to where it's just like, it's your routine now. It's your rhythm. And then you get up and you're like, oh, okay, now I'm going to interject a gym membership. Well, do you go to the gym 5 days a week? No. Let's try 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I think 3 at minimum is probably where you want to start with resistance training and stuff. But I don't think going from 0 to, lifting a ridiculous amount of weight 6 days a week is the best thing for a lot of people. Becomes too much too quick and they burn out a lot of the times.
Or hurt themselves. Before.
Yeah, and it works for a lot. It works for some people. But I think those are the outliers. So I think you create the habit around that first. And so people always say, well, if I'm supposed to be starting to create honesty and develop this relationship with myself first,
Mm-hmm.
do you time travel back to the 5,000 things that were traumatic to you as a kid and deal with those all in the first week? No, man. No. I think if you have some of those things, there's probably a health professional is probably the first point that I would start to. But if it's not anything that you feel is like detrimental to you, that puts you in spaces where there's self-harm involved or self-hate involved, where it becomes to a point where it's affecting all your other committed relationships, that's where I think you can manage a lot of that stuff yourself. But that's a slippery slope too, because it's like, oh, I got this. In my perfect example, like, I'm going to beat this in a week. I always joke about that. I'm going to beat this thing in a week. And it's like, man, that was just the wrong answer. Technically, I did beat it, but
Did you really think you were going to beat it in a week?
I mean, I had a little mini competition in my own head, thinking that there's no way it's going to take more than a month.
Jesus. Okay.
In my own head, which obviously wasn't the truth, but
Yeah.
That's ego, and identifying what that was. So back to that piece of, that's where brutal honesty comes in. People think that there's like, I don't need to go talk to somebody. I don't need to this. That's such a super masculine. There's something about an unbiased person that'll just sit back and chit chat with you and just let you talk it out. I don't know that it's much more complicated than just talking it out.
Or just having someone willing to ask the important questions.
Yeah.
That's been
like what it was. I just need to have the conversation of what it was. And the thing is there could probably be 5 things that it was.
Yeah? What do you think?
No, I'm saying like in a specific thing, right? It could be, let's say I was struggling with the death of one of my teammates and I was on a deployment, and I could find peace in thinking that we need men like that on this planet to further cement the idea of freedoms, and it's a necessary evil, and it sucks, and it's the ultimate sacrifice. But now they gave me a gift to further pursuit of freedom, and I'm going to honor that.
Yeah.
And I just needed to talk that out with somebody, and I needed to hear that perspective. I needed to understand what it was, and the next thing you know, I've let that go. I've learned the lesson, and I've moved on past it. And that's what it is for me now. Every day I wake up and I honor those guys that have fallen in combat. And I could have heard another perspective around it, that maybe I'm a religious person.
Yeah.
And it was like God needed his servant to come home into the kingdom of whatever.
Yeah.
And that could have been the perspective that I needed to hear.
The comfort. Yeah.
In order to let go and grasp what it was and move on with my own life here today. And that's what I mean by having that unbiased talk through with somebody and giving them a space for you to just kind of explore and come to terms with whatever lesson you were trying to grasp out of a specific failure or trauma or sadness or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And I don't think I think some people are searching for that one piece that, like, oh, I went to this guy and he said this one thing, and that's what it is based on biology and psychology and all this other kind of stuff. I'm supposed to feel like this because I had this trauma happen to me. It's like,
yeah, you have to interpret that trauma your own way.
And so that's where I think that relationship with yourself is through, it's got to be in conjunction with some kind of learning.
Yeah.
Some kind of curiosity, whether it be reading books or conversations, deep, connected, emotional conversations with somebody you trust or friends, therapists, mental health professionals, whatever your thing is. But without that relationship with yourself and actually knowing who you are,
yeah,
what are you giving to the other relationships then?
I don't know.
If you're unknown in yourself. Don't look at me like that. The thing is
fear just welled up.
Well, and so this now circles back to the pressures of family, social constructs, society, culture, that, like, I'm supposed to be this, but what I know to be true of who I am is this, but I can't be that because of what everybody else thinks that I should be.
Yeah.
Which is such a bizarre thing to me because I don't understand that at all. I mean, I get it. I understand the pressure, but for me to be manipulated by the ideas,
it doesn't compute for you.
No.
You're very unique in that sense, though. Like, you and Danielle both have not shocked me, but come at things from a perspective that I've never encountered before. Like, to me, being brutally honest with yourself and your relationships that you care about is one thing, but being brutally honest with the public at large is very different for me. And I also don't feel like I owe people that honesty. And you guys just embrace everybody and don't care. Well, at least that's my perception of it. You're looking
no, but I mean, I think that's probably valid. Like, if religion's obviously one of those ones that's super easy. Like, I don't care if Muslims or Catholics or Mormons or whoever coming in here, I'm not talking about certain things.
Yeah.
I'm not having
changing who you are.
Having my glass of bourbon. I'm not changing my actions based on my environment for the most part. Now, I think there are some places where I think you have to have a level of respect to an extent. Like, if I'm in somebody else's space that's theirs, I'm going to have to respect that space. But if someone's coming into my home or my business or my area or a public domain, nah, man, I'm not.
That's who you are.
Yeah, I'm not bending to anybody's shit, man.
That's interesting.
No way.
I
think I've always been like that, and I think it's hurt a lot of people's feelings. But I sleep good at night about it.
Yeah.
Now, so I mean,
why do you think it hurts people's feelings?
Because I think they get wrapped around in their own shit and thinking that you don't care about their needs and their feelings and their beliefs.
Okay.
Which is super counterintuitive because it's like, oh, I can't believe you're, I grew up Mormon, so it's super easy. But from, like, we had a barbecue with one of my SF buddies one time, and he's just sitting around drinking beers, and my grandma could not. It just didn't make sense to her.
Yeah.
She's like, "This some Mormon family here, and like alcohol is," and he's like, I'm having a beer.
Yeah.
I don't know what the issue is here. And so that's such a weird thing to me because now you're pushing your agenda on them, but you want them to stop having their beer.
Yeah.
So
To honor your agenda.
yeah, and you're like, well, he doesn't care about my feelings. It's like, well, now in return, you don't care about his feelings for wanting to sit back and enjoy a beer.
That's true.
So it's reciprocal between the two of you now.
Yeah.
So who's the person that's actually wrong in that situation? The one that decides that like, oh yeah, you're right. The majority of the people here are religious and they don't believe in alcohol, so I'm gonna stop drinking alcohol, or the latter. I don't have that right answer. I just know what I would do.
You'd keep drinking the
I'd
beer.
probably keep drinking the beer.
Yeah.
I would probably drink more. I would probably drink 2 at a time, like one in each
Just
hand.
to make the point.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm antagonistic to that point, and that's probably one of those, brutal honesty that I do know that I can be antagonistic at sometimes. But I was having a conversation with someone the other day about that, and I was like, well, it's not antagonistic to just be a dick.
Yeah.
It's really like I have a problem with people being so close-minded that this is it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, well, if you're going to be closed-minded, I'm going to be antagonistic to a point to challenge your belief in your perspective, to at least acknowledge that mine exists.
Yeah.
And if that's just the avenue that I know to get to that point, which is wrong or right or whatever, I have no idea. But antagonistic is just how I've always invoked the emotion and thought in somebody else to at least start a conversation.
Yeah.
Well, when they've ended the conversation before it even started. It's like, no. Now I'm going to force the issue. Now I'm going to challenge you to go outside your comfort zone just a little bit to at least acknowledge that, like, your world isn't the only world that exists right now. Which is weird because then you're like, if that's a valued relationship in your life, like, are you destroying it now because you're being so authentic in yourself that you're pushing somebody else away? And this is another source of contention that me and you have conversations about to an extent where there's certain things that I believe in that if somebody's not right in my life, they're just not right in my life. I can't force it to happen just because I don't know where the pressure comes and I use family as the perfect example. I haven't, there's certain family members in my life that I probably haven't talked to in, I don't know, years, 6 years, 6 years or something.
Yeah. And you have good reason not to. I mean, it was like, the simple thing is do you add to my life or do you take away? Yeah.
And it's like, if you're taking away, I don't have the energy for that. I have other things that I'm trying to accomplish within myself, within my really committed relationships. The people that I see every day, the people that I have emotional, deep connections to, because there's different levels of connection that you have with people, and that has to do with communication pieces. That I'm trying to close the gap on even more.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be closer and deeper with them.
Yeah.
So if I dump energy into something else, I can't get to the potential of where I'm actually trying to be with the things that truly matter to me most. And it's not that you don't matter, it's that you chose to be such a toxic piece of my life that you didn't value it anymore.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Just neither of us value it now. So it's got to go. I'm just the one that had to make the hard decision to be like, no, we're not going to keep this cycle for another 30 years. It's just not going to happen. Sorry.
What do you think keeps people in that cycle?
The idea that, well, if we're talking about family specifically, there's this notion, I don't know where it comes from, that like, that's your blood.
Yeah.
They're your family. They're your family.
Just
you gotta love them. It's like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
What? Just because we, through DNA or something, we're connected? Like, I don't. Doesn't make any sense to me. I have 30 something distant connected relatives in Texas based on 23andMe.
Do you really?
Yeah, am I supposed to go run out and find these people and be like, dude, we're blood. Can I stay in your spare bedroom this weekend? Like, dude, it's such an insane notion to me. I don't.
That's true.
The term family, I get it, where it's blood related is one thing.
Yeah.
I think family's chosen. I think the reason people get deeply connected to blood family is because, one, when you're biologically related, there are some things in there that are inherently passed down.
Yeah.
Like people, there's a whole who is it that wrote about it? I can't remember, but that our political parties are based on biology. There's this whole research and study around it. So the idea is that, well, they did a study, and again, this is like
I don't believe that at all,
this is correlative stuff.
Okay.
Essentially, they tracked down, there was like this handful of twins, identical twins, that they could, and this is where they knew that there was a base biology to an extent of like what you're predisposed to lean towards on one side or the other.
Yeah.
That these identical twins were separated at birth and went to two separate different adoption families. And what they did was they tried to find data where like one identical twin grew up in a more right/Republican family and the other one was in Democratic/left. And based on their linealogy of where they were coming from, if their biological makeup was majority down the line lean towards Republican, the one that grew up in the Democratic family actually pushed against their family and was like, no, I don't believe in any of that shit. And this comes down to the idea of tribal days where you had tribes that were so far on the side of like, we can't let anybody in and we've got to fight for what we have, and outsiders are no, which you have to an extent, because if not, you'll just get conquered.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened to the liberal side, for lack of better terms. It was like, no, dude, I'm just going to take care of everybody and we can all grow crops together and we can love, and everybody can just do what makes them happy. And then the conquerors would come in and just like, no, we're just going to take all your resources. Sorry. Okay. So what ends up happening in our country is that we have an equal amount on both sides, which you have to have. You have to have this ebb and flow and this balance of like, no, we have to accept people for who they are and allow them to search their freedoms and allow people access in diversity and culture and some other stuff, i.e. immigration and some other things. But we also have to check it, and we also have to have people that are willing to defend it and stand on these beliefs. And the fact of the matter is we need those extremes.
Yeah.
We've got to have the right-wing nuts that believe the Second Amendment is the only thing that's keeping America what America is. We have to have those people. Like when no one was complaining about those dudes, and I'm one of them. No one was complaining about those dudes when planes were flying through the World Trade Centers. Nobody was complaining about those guys. They were like, "Yep, dude, call them up. Let's get them out of the woodworks. Let's drum up our dudes that just want to go out and just murder everything and live by the Second Amendment and drink beer and woo America." I don't think they should be entirely on that side, which is part of the problem. But so the idea is that biology is set some form of predisposition of where you're willing to lean just based on what type of person you are. Am I willing to defend and be weary of everything else, or am I willing to accept and embrace everybody for who they are? And if you look at it, it kind of falls in line with politics to an extent. That's why you have, and then you have all these like outliers that just kind of like, oh, well, I kind of believe with some of that shit, and I kind of believe with some of that shit, and I don't know where I belong now. Which is a whole nother conversation. But do I think everybody should live in the middle of that? I don't know. I mean, if the other side keeps you super happy and this side keeps you super happy, I think we just need to understand that the mesh of that, as long as we can keep it peaceful, is what's going to keep what we have what it is. Yeah. Because that's what built it.
Yeah.
Which is hard, because we talk about it.
It is hard.
We've had these conversations, and I don't want to get in a political talk. I'm talking about, this is a biological talk, at least from an anecdotal or a correlative research thing, that they're like, well, how come these twins more or less out of the time sided with each other. We're both always on the same
Yeah.
Political party,
I want to know how many twins there were.
regardless of the environment that they grew up in.
Okay.
Which debunks the whole thing that the environment shapes you, right?
Well, I also think like the environment, the one twin could have been rebelling against an environment that wasn't good for them. I mean, there's so many
Could have been, yeah.
different factors in there. I'd want to see it over a big population rather than
Oh yeah,
two
for
twins,
sure. But it's
yeah.
at least something that we have to recognize.
Yeah.
That what makes you be bang. I mean, because you're a perfect example. Like you're on one side and your family's on the other.
Absolutely.
So you're like, no, that's bullshit. Dad. Yeah. Am I adopted? Are you adopted, Bethany?
Could be.
Could be.
My sister used to tell me that all the time.
You could be. Who knows? Nah, man. You guys are the family of dwarfs, man.
That's true. We're all the same size.
So yeah, the relationships, I think, is the key to where people are now sort of stuck on like what's real and what isn't real, what's honest, what isn't honest, what's authentic, and what's disingenuous.
I think,
and how you get to there is the relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
And how you get to there is your body operating optimally? Are you acknowledging your emotions for what they are? Are you dealing with them as they come? Are you present in the moment that you are? Have you dealt with your entire past? And because here's the thing, if you continue to ignore specific lessons, they're coming back.
They're always coming back.
They're coming back around.
Yeah. I think
they're always coming back around.
There's lots of questions I want to ask about this, but
send them.
I'm choosing my conversations wisely. I don't know. I think there's people like you that grew up in an environment that probably wasn't optimal, had some conflict, was pretty hard on you, and you came out of it with a very like optimistic personality, but very honest about where you came from and why you made the decisions that you did going forward from there. There's other people that grew up in an environment and possibly didn't recognize it for what it was, or didn't until they encountered another community later on in life. So it's hard for people, I think, to there's a subset of people that it's hard to look back and see what's normal and what's acceptable and what's not.
Well, and I think that's part of the linchpin.
Yeah.
Is that we're trying to define normal.
Yeah.
You have to boom, you have to boom, you have to boom.
Yeah.
And so people are willing to lie to themselves about decisions they make currently, decisions they've made in the past, and the situations that they were in the past to fit the narrative they're trying to sell themselves today.
Absolutely.
Which is fucking crazy.
It is
like
crazy.
Wake up. What the fuck?
But how do you make that person see either the abnormality or the toxicity of the place that they've been or the place they currently are?
Well, first off, you have to sit down and understand that the fear you have around it, like if I go back in time travel and imagine those things that shaped me for who I was, or some of those traumatic environments I'm in, or whatever, what are they going to do to you today?
Yeah.
Nothing. They can't touch you.
You don't feel that emotional conflict again when you're there?
So this is funny because it's one of the things I'm writing on right now is I got wrapped around this idea of the nostalgia of pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
The nostalgia of pain, in the sense that it takes us back to a time that you can vividly remember, that was, because people want to feel. And if you're so wrapped around all your negative and traumatic things, you become numb to the minute punches throughout the day.
Yeah.
You eventually become numb to them, so you just want to feel something.
Yeah.
So the nostalgia of the
reaching for
really
something
traumatic ones, you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I want to go past what I'm
Yep.
getting punched every day, so I
Yep.
can feel something.
Absolutely.
I want to feel something.
Yeah.
And that nostalgia is such a weird place to be in because time travel is so funny. I keep saying time travel.
Yeah.
I fucking time traveled, man. Like in my own head of like, my mom was in a real abusive relationship and he was beating the fuck out of her and he would have Friday night fights where me and my brother would box at like we were like 5 and 6 or something, whatever the fuck we were. And we were living in a trailer. He was supposed to be building this house in the middle of a desert. I don't know, he had a bunch of land or something. But you could walk for an hour before you hit another house.
Oh, jeez.
Right in the middle of nowhere. And so we would just walk around and hunt snakes and lizards and BB guns. And this is where it's so funny. This is a hilarious story. I think I was like 5 or 6. It was the first time I saw a pornographic magazine. The kids these days are like, why don't you just Google it? If you want to see a pair of tits, you can just Google them. Like, yeah, well, that didn't exist back then. And we came across this like dump site where it was like a common dump site in the desert. And
Yeah.
Nevada's known for this, where like you'll just come across this like little area where people will dump refrigerators and all their garbage and just like they clean out their garage and they just come dump everything out. And there was a box there that probably had, I don't know, 200 porno mags.
So much is becoming
Playboy and good shit.
Yeah.
Not just Playboys, like all
Hustlers.
yeah,
everything.
the hustlers, all the and this was like out in the middle of this dump. So of course we took the box and we moved it out of that area to where like nobody else could really get to it, and we just had
Treasure.
we had full access to this thing every day. We didn't know what any of that shit was at the time. You're like, I want to say we were 7 or 8 or something. My brother was a year younger than me. But I remember that's so funny. You're like laughing about it now. But that was us hiking and walking through the desert and hunting animals and looking at pornography. At that age was like, it was daydreaming. It was like, let's get the fuck out of this
Yeah.
trailer, because we were living in a trailer at the time.
The escape from the trauma.
Yeah. And it was just it turned into a positive thing for us.
Yeah.
Which is super weird. But then they started building a housing development within walking distance to us. And this is where, hey, you jerk. Tin's going crazy over here.
Stop.
And that was back then when they used to leave the model homes unlocked 24 hours a day.
Oh.
And you could just go walk the model home.
Yeah.
And there's before cameras and before anything, but it was, and so we were the only trailer within this housing development for miles.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being one of these things where we went in there and we just started demolishing one of these model homes.
Oh my God.
But I bet you can't punch through this wall. Like punch through the wall. I'm like, oh, that felt really good. I bet you can't kick this door off the hinges. Kick the door off the hinges and be like, oh, that felt really good. And it was like this weird expression of all the anger that we had bottled up because we were so little. We didn't know how to redistribute that energy into something positive or good or whatever. Which is, I still, when I get, I talked about it on the last podcast where I destroyed my house. Like that was my outlet it's nostalgic for me. It takes me all the way back to that time where I was actually genuinely feeling something that I wasn't feeling emotions anywhere at the time because my mom was working wherever and we never really saw him. And then when we did, like her and my stepdad were fighting like crazy. So we were in our bedrooms, like hiding in the closet essentially.
Ugh.
And the times where we did get together, we were watching boxing. He was really into boxing. This is Vegas at the time, back in the 80s, right? So like Mike Tyson and all that. And we would fight during the fights, me and my brother, for entertainment for him and his buddies while they just sat there and got drunk.
Oh, jeez.
Which, like, it sounds terrible, but
it was fun for you at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I like kind of joke about it and laugh about it now. But I understand now where some of my the nostalgia of what
Yeah.
things are for me now, because of up until recently, I still enjoyed fighting. So I still understand combat sports and the emotions behind that for certain people that probably grew up in specific environments, on why that makes them tick.
Yeah.
Is that a biological thing that we're just aggressive people, and that's just a part of
It could be.
like I can fight with my best friends, fist fight,
Yeah.
legit angry, and laugh and joke about it 30 minutes later.
Still?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's like, that's a weird, like, what? On our team and stuff, I mean, we would like getting ready to go to blows, like wanting to choke each other out. And an hour later, we're at dinner laughing and joking about whatever.
But that's,
which is not healthy, not unhealthy, I don't even know what you call it, because it's
I
like
don't know. It is kind of healthy.
A bunch of caged gorillas, and they're just like beating each other up and being like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are we
At least it's physical and it's over.
Yeah, let's eat dinner. Yeah, there's no dwelling on it, which is an interesting thing. But back to the type of relationships you have.
Yeah. We had much different 90s childhoods, but like I've always been interested in the fact that like the 90s grunge era that we were in.
I was all hip hop, man.
I know you were, but it was like it's so nostalgic with me to hear that music, but then I also blame it for a lot of my friends' suicides and and like the glorification of depression back then, and
that was a weird time, man, because it was like which is weird, because I don't think it was glorification of depression to an extent. I think it was just people were showing vulnerability that more raw than what it looked like in previous music, possibly.
That could be true.
And people took it as, it's like I was listening to a thing the other day where they were bitching about 13 Reasons Why on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, they're giving kids a reason to, and they're like, well, maybe they're just invoking the thought that like this is what some people are thinking and dealing with right now in their lives. I've never watched the show, but I'm just saying.
I haven't watched it either.
From an outside perspective, but
I know
there's always intent behind things, and it's like I don't think they made the show with the intent of like, dude, we should make this show that causes thousands of teenagers to want to kill themselves. Yeah. Let's pitch that.
Yeah.
It's like I have more faith in humanity than that.
Yeah.
Like I think there's
absolutely.
I think there's more good in the world than that thought process, because if that's where we're at as a species, how do we wipe ourselves out?
Yeah.
How do we get to AI faster?
Yeah.
Because if that's how we think as mankind, we need to get this AI shit rolling so that super intelligence can look at our species and be like, whoa,
nope.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Because that's insanity to me.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's people out there, there's 100% for a fact people that do think in that type of capacity, which is another reason why I go out and hunt bad guys.
Yeah. I majored in sociology in college, and all the classes that I took, we talked about the rates of suicide, and they always spike after a major celebrity kills themselves or after a local suicide hits headlines. So I know in Austin, you don't see a lot of the suicides in the news, especially in print, just because they've made that choice to not publicize those things and not give it an extra voice.
Yeah.
So that they don't see the spike in the population. But
there's probably a piece of when people see actions of, this is how powerful the connection of human relations are. If someone sees something like that happen in somebody that they even had small admiration for, that's the tipping point of justification on what were they grasping onto. And I was like, oh, okay, well, if it can't get that bad, well, that's the last justification that I needed in that moment.
Yeah. It's all the moment in time.
Yeah, which is it's so interesting how it can tip one way or the other over a conversation.
Yeah.
Like it's that fragile. for some people. Which is why, again, circling back to the importance of healthy, positive relationships.
Mm-hmm.
If you always have people in your life that are, finding the best in everything and seeing the beauty in everything and willing to go out and fail at every turn and understand that there is a silver lining 100% of the time, not just sometimes, 100% of the time. Dude, he's just gnawing away on
Yeah. What the deal is.
It's and this is what's in understanding that people's emotions and the way that you have the power to turn one person, whether they're a leader or alpha or beta or whatever the fuck you want to call it, has the power to manipulate and change an entire culture within a tribe.
Absolutely.
Just from being habitual, which is crazy, which is why I'm really quick to cut people.
Yeah.
Super quick, because I'm like, dude, okay. Like, I thought that we might be on to something here, but you have your own shit that you need to figure out, and it's no longer a part of my journey anymore. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hope nothing but the best for you. Maybe we'll circle back in another lifetime and something will happen.
Yeah.
It happened in my marriage. Like, I was out. I was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
This chick is connected somewhere else. It's not here. And I still have another 60 damn years to get through this life. Like, let's figure this shit out. The relationship with myself was so broken because of another relationship that I was giving to.
Yeah.
Wasn't getting anything in return.
I don't know. When we were talking through that, back when you were my coach, like, I think the last time I talked to you before everything went ass and up, over Christmas, you had a conversation with me about that and about being driven by the purpose of your relationship, but also about being willing to let it go if that wasn't serving you, and if it wasn't serving both of you.
Yeah.
And I could not grasp that, and I still struggle with it sometimes, but I don't see it as a dishonesty from you and Danielle, because you both believe that and have lived that life. It's just one of those things that's really hard to grasp.
Well, it's counterintuitive, because you get this idea in your head that, like, it sounds self-serving, but it's not. If your relationship with yourself isn't operating optimally, and it's, again, if you have a mediocre relationship with yourself, you're gonna have a mediocre relationship with everything else, because you cannot give your best self.
Yeah.
Which is what you should be trying to do every day. Like, how do you leave shit better than how you got it?
Yeah.
Like, you have to pour positive energy into it. You have to invoke some kind of change in perspective in the situations that you're in. And it's like, how can you do that when you're trapped in your own shit?
Yeah.
How do you
define a good relationship with yourself, though?
So I understand that with myself specifically, that I have everything I need for peace.
Yeah.
Like, I know that 100% hands down. Like, material things aren't what they used to be. I'm not trying to prove people wrong anymore that I can execute on this. I'm not trying to, I don't have this idea that, like, I'm the best SF guy that's ever been produced in the regiment anymore. I don't have, so there's a lot of ego and a lot of pride that has to be, like, broken and let go. And it's just a part of that's an interesting question, because there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to want to hear the truth around what it actually is. One, and it's coming around a lot better than it used to be, but my body is fit and healthy.
Yeah.
Like it's fit and healthy. My blood work is good. My hormones are good. I sleep 6 to 8 hours a night. I don't crash in the middle of the day. I don't have energy issues. And so that, and I've faced every emotion as it comes.
Yeah.
I don't hide from it. I don't, if I'm pissed off and I'm this, I verbalize it to whoever I'm committed to that's in and around me. Hey.
Quit.
No, sir. And Tim's over here getting crazy.
Eat my hand.
And I have absolute honesty, and I have the expectations very clear of like what people are going to get from me,
Yeah.
what I expect out of them, which is nothing, which is a new thing for me because I used to have expectations on what I thought people owed me based on what I was giving them,
Yeah.
which has got me in a lot of bad situations. So that relationship with myself now, and understanding that, like, could I, this is so funny, based on cultural standards and aesthetics, could I be leaner in my midsection?
Yeah.
Sure. Sure. But if I look at myself in the mirror, like, why would I be unhappy with what I built and created up to this point? Which is a weird place to be. I don't have that question anymore. I do now understand that where I'm at physically and emotionally, the second and third effects of that are aesthetically, I look okay by cultural standards. And I'm good with just being okay.
Yeah.
I'm good with not looking like some kind of like magazine fitness model anymore. I'm good with watching The Notebook and crying my eyes out.
Yeah.
Fuck, I don't care. But I'm also good with watching Step Brothers and cracking up at the humor of that. I'm good with sitting down and drinking some rum at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday.
Yep.
And so I've to a point, the relationship with myself now, which is where I would love to see a lot of people get to, is that I embrace everything that I have, everything that I've done, everything. There's nothing that's off the table that I'm not willing to talk about, because I've embraced and people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you just put all your shit out there on this podcast. And I was like, dude, I've embraced all that shit.
Yeah.
Because it's what got me to where I am today. So I think not having any guilt around anything. Now, is this optimal for people? Yeah, I think this is an optimal place to be, because getting worked up now is very hard for me. Getting upset is really hard for me. And then when I do, I just embrace it for what it is. Let the shit get out there and talk about it.
Is there anything that still embarrasses you or shames you or guilts you?
No.
Nothing.
No, I don't. No. I've been trying to find, dude, I mean, like, I'm writing on a website and have a podcast and talk about, my wife fucking my best friend and my business partner and my special forces teammate. Like, what? Most people would be so ashamed to even, but why would you be ashamed of that? Like, I don't
know if it's shame. It still hurts me to hear it. So I think there's just
it's uncomfortable.
a natural.
I think it's uncomfortable. It's not uncomfortable for me. I don't really give a shit. And it's like, I sit back and I try to ask myself, like, are you just lying to yourself about this to heal? Are you just creating this persona so you can, hide all your own pain and put this face of confidence and ego up in front of you, because that's definitely what a lot of us do. And it
Yeah.
can come off on both ends of the spectrum on whether or not they're either hiding or dealing, or they actually are just in this state of peace in life.
I think after witnessing the last few months, I feel like there were times where we felt like maybe the optimism for that day wasn't healthy or genuine.
Mm-hmm.
But then you would circle back and
Yeah, like trying to convince myself. That,
yeah.
like, yeah.
But it was the work that was happening. And so it was always good to see you in that good place.
Mm-hmm.
But for a while we kept waiting for the bad place to come back. And after it hasn't been that long. It's probably only been a few months of
Probably March, end of March-ish.
yeah.
February, March, I think was probably, that's when I left the gym.
Yeah.
A couple weeks after that was probably like, okay, I'm fucking over this shit.
And it's at that point you crossed a goal line and haven't looked back. I mean, and I'm not saying looking back from considering it, thinking about it, going through those emotions again. Yes, you've obviously done that, but you haven't let it get to you or pull you back down emotionally.
Yeah, no, and that's sort of part of one of those things of like, look at my day every day. It's exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly the same to an extent. Like,
yeah, I was about to say.
Get up at the same time. I go through the same thing. I meditate every morning, and people get wrapped around this idea that like I'm supposed to be like sitting on a little cushion and my hands on my knees. Me, I sit in the bathtub for like an hour, sometimes 4.
Yep. Sometimes
People feel
4.
like, what? I'm like, I just work in the bathtub.
Yep.
Which people find super bizarre, but
you should show people your setup one day.
dude, I love it, man. It's the best. But I spend about an hour in there, and I get up first thing, make the bed, first thing, go to the bathroom, walk into the kitchen. I have salt. I have an apple cider vinegar tonic, water, about 6 ounces of water, and a probiotic first thing with some structured silver every morning. And then I kind of mess with the dog a little bit, and there's that lag time of like, what am I doing? I kind of get my like coffee prepped. And then I go out in the garage and I move for 15, 20 minutes probably. And move is like 3 rounds, run around the block, 15 push-ups, 5 pull-ups. That's it. So it's not anything crazy. It's not anything ridiculous. It's just enough to get the sun on me first thing, sun exposure first thing in the morning. Move, get some blood flowing. Get something in my body that sets up digestion for the day. And then I take my coffee and I go sit in the bath, and then I read normally. So I'm on my phone, and I have I just subscribe to a bunch of different like IdeaPod and Goalcast, Tom Bailu, Jay Shetty, Joe Dispenza, like just people like that, influencers that not influencers like Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
Like I'm not influenced by makeup and plastic surgery and shit like that. I'm
thought and self-help.
Ideas, growth, internal, trying to figure out how to deepen the relationship with myself first and foremost. So that's the first thing I do every morning. And then depending on the day, whether I have tattoo appointments, I'll get out of there, and then I normally read for the habit I'm trying to create now. I set a goal for myself for 30 minutes. It's not working. So I'm diverting it. Well, because I read all those articles first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
So I'm 30, 40 minutes of reading in there, and then sometimes they're videos, sometimes they're articles. And then I come out and I tangibly put the electronics down. And I tangibly put my hands on paper because I have all paper books, and I read, try them for 30 minutes, but it's more like 15, and sometimes it's 30. But I have to be realistic with myself in the sense that my brain will start scattering. Yeah, it'll be like, dude, you got to write that article. You got to get the shit out. And it's not like I've got to for anybody else. I've got to for myself. Yeah. To get this shit out of my head that's clouding me, or noise. I just call it noise, white noise. That's just it makes everything blurry around me. So if I don't either write it in my journal, or I use Grammarly, or I just have topics and ideas of things where I'm like, I just have to get this thing out before I forget about it. And then later on in the day, I'm like, what was that thing I was thinking about this morning? And I'll lose 15 minutes trying to figure out what I was thinking about this morning.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing for people to have I have a pen and I have a notepad with a pen that I keep around. And if I have something that's like, oh shit, that was a good thought. If I get that moment, I just write it down somewhere, or I try to put it in my notes in my phone. And then I do work, and then my kids come home at 4, so I compartmentalize everything. I don't start any work till 9, so all the stuff in the morning is movement. Do everything you can to prep and set yourself up for the day. Meditate, and for me, meditation is really trying to figure out what I want to do today. What's the worst case, best case, and the most likely scenario of all those different situations that I may be putting myself in, whether it's a meeting, a tattoo that's coming. Me and Danielle are sitting down and having a conversation about whatever. We really have a very simple, uncomplicated life, so there's not a whole lot of like, holy shit, we need to sit down and like dissect finances or whatever. And then, so I like the idea of looking at worst case scenario, best case scenario, and the most likely, because in my head, it means that I've experienced them already. So then when I'm in the situations, it's like when shit doesn't go as bad as what I imagined it could go.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, I was like, it's all gravy now. It was way better than what could have happened. So I like the idea of just creating 3, but I don't like thinking any more than just the 3, because then it's just wasted time for me. You'll see one of my common themes is I have triangles everywhere, and I'm like obsessed with this like 3, and there's all these people like, oh, rule of 3, and that's I just like things in 3.
Yep.
I don't know why. That's just the way my brain works. When it comes to thoughts like that.
Yeah.
And then I execute on the day, and then 4 to 4:30 rolls around. The kids come home, and I dick with my kids for, I don't know, an hour or something. And then Danielle comes home, and then we exercise. We exercise together every day for mostly every day. Sometimes we're binging on Netflix. That's like our new thing right now. We've been binging on Netflix, and we got to break that habit because that shit is getting out of control. She started this new show, Outlander, which is whack as shit.
It's from a book series.
Is so whack.
Yeah.
It's entertaining.
Scottish Highlands. Yeah.
Yeah, it's entertaining, but it's whack. Anyways, so we do that, and then we cook dinner. We sit down at the dinner table together. Brew some tea. Sit out on the back porch, run the dog, and then by that time it's 7-ish probably, and then we'll go in and watch a movie with the kids, or sometimes we'll watch TV. Sometimes the kids will just come out and we sit on the back porch and we just bullshit about life.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's one of the things we're really big on, is making sure our kids understand what's important in life.
Yeah.
And so this conversation that we're having now about how relationships and making sure that those are good, and your connection to your own body and all this other kind of things, those are the conversations. My daughter's 12, my son's 17. We have those conversations on the porch now, and I try to talk to them about just the perspectives of traveling and seeing other cultures and trying to get out of here, and maybe not necessarily going to college straight away, and the difference between professions and trades and working for yourself and creating something that's your own, and working for somebody else but still creating your own thing with inside stuff. And they're just at that age now where that's not top of mind for them, but I'm at least trying to make it subconscious of some things that they at least have to like think about every so often. My son's applying for college and shit now, that kind of stuff. So it's like,
but your kids already have skills. Like, I look at them and think about my childhood and go, they grew up in a completely different environment than I did. But man,
I am pretty this is another thing that brings me a whole bunch of peace. I think a lot of parents probably struggle with it. my kids could leave today, even Trinley at 12. They could leave today and I wouldn't worry about them.
For real?
No.
I know you wouldn't, but
Mm-mm.
I also know that Trentley at 12 could
Now,
take care of herself
There's
better
a
than I
difference
could.
between miss
Yeah.
and worry.
Yeah.
I would miss my kids, but I wouldn't worry about them.
Yeah. They're survivors. They'd survive.
Yeah, I mean they're just smart, independent kids. They're not, like my daughter. She's very selective about like her friends and stuff, and there's like, she's a cute little thing, and she's hilarious and
Smart.
artistic, super smart, and she's just like, yeah, the kids are talking about this, and that's just really fucking stupid.
Yep.
And she just laughs about her shit and goes back to reading, and but she's a cool chick, man. I don't even know how to explain it, but yeah, she's not into
She's so grounded in herself.
yeah, she's not into the social stuff. She knows
Yeah.
what she likes and who she is, and it drives Daniel insane because she's like, oh, hey, could you comb your hair? And Trinley's like, eh. And that's that age where you're like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, dude, you're projecting your shit on your own kid. Like
Well, everybody does.
you want her hair to be nice because you think the kids are going to pick on her. Like Trinley she don't fucking care if the kids pick on her.
It's true.
She honestly doesn't care. She's like, whatever. You think my hair's gross? Okay.
But also, I think everyone projects themselves on their kids.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I remember the first time you told me that your kids were spoiled. And I was like, hold on. I don't think you've met other American kids because your kids are not spoiled in any sense of the word.
Yeah, but also always setting them up, to understand that like the real world isn't coming home every day from school and having the luxuries that's provided to you because
they're well taken care of.
Yeah, they have everything they need to create their own opportunity.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's up to them. That's not me. I'm not doing any of that shit. Danielle's a little bit better about it than I am, but I just sit down and talk to my kids about the consequences of their actions. I'm like, look, man, if you want to call in sick every day from school, I'm not writing you an excuse. But if you want to like just gamble with your own shit and miss days of school, maybe you're allowed 15. I don't know what it is. I have no clue. And you want to like, okay, every 2 weeks I can take a Friday off, and like you want to miss school and you want to do the bare minimum on homework and you want to get C's across the board, but then you get the 16th absent and they're talking about holding you back a year. Mm-hmm. That's your shit, man. It's not mine.
Yep.
I don't fucking care. You're just going to repeat the 6th grade.
That's your responsibility.
It has nothing to do with me.
Yep.
And I don't care if you repeat the 6th grade. It's a pain in my ass because now I have to own you for another year when I was expecting you to go to college or travel or whatever. But
yeah.
They understand now that like, oh shit, man, nobody is here to save me.
Yeah.
For my actions.
Absolutely.
Not even my own parents.
Responsibility.
Which I think that's a hard thing for parents to do. It's hard for Danielle because she sits back sometimes where, we had a situation recently where I took everything out of my son's room. And people are like, oh, you took his computer? No. His dresser.
Everything out of his room.
His bed. Danielle gave him a blanket and pillow. I wasn't even going to give him that. And people are like, golly. And it's like, no, hold on. We had this conversation for like 8 months. I was like, dude, I'm going to take all your shit because you're not respecting it for what it is. Like, show some gratitude through action and we'll never have a problem.
Can I tell the story about our conversation that day, though? Because it's one of my favorite quotes of all time. I think you had texted me and said, I just took everything out of Tristan's room. And I was like, holy shit, what happened? And you said, well, I went in there and it was just, you wouldn't believe what I found in there. And I said, what was it? Like drugs? Because we know Tristan. He doesn't. Yeah. He's a good kid. And you, and your response was no, laziness.
Yeah.
It's like,
okay, the thing is
solid.
Like if you walk into the real world with those actions. So if I allow him to create habits around those things.
Yeah.
He's going to struggle, man. And those layers are things that he's going to have to deal with one day. So if I can mitigate it now, the amount of shit that he's going to have to deal with when he gets in the real world and starts creating his own failures is going to be less. He's going to be more resilient walking into those into those situations and those circumstances. And I don't have any problems with, that. Like, why do I have to give my kid a bed? There's a fucking roof over his head. The carpet is softer than shit that I had to sleep on over the past 20 years.
It's true.
So it's like, dude, I've seen kids with smiles on their faces that sleep underneath a fucking tree every night. It's like, dude, that's not, a bed isn't your key to happiness.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's been, and don't get me wrong, those are like, I can think of 2 or 3 instances in 17 years where I had to like, all right, dude, here we go. The first one, he was 8, maybe. He stole a toy from this kid's house, and I saw him playing with it while we were at the birthday party, and then when I got to the house, he still had it, and he tried to hide it from me.
Oh no!
And I was like, "What are you doing? What do you got there?" And I was like, "Did you take that?" So I texted the parents, and I was like, "Hey, can you ask your kid if they're missing whatever this thing was?" And they're like, "Yeah, they can't find it." I was like, "Okay, we'll be over in a minute." And they lived 12 miles from us. And so I stuck a rucksack on them and we walked 12 miles in North Carolina in 100-degree heat.
Oh my God.
And I rucksacked his ass to their house. And
at 8.
Yeah, he had to apologize to him. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, this is like child abuse." It's like, well, you got some fitness out of it.
Yeah. It's not a bad idea.
And on the ride back, a cop stopped us and was like, "Do you guys need a ride?" I'm like, no, we're just exercising. But we took water and stuff, and we were fine. And then we had this little mud thing behind our house, and I took them out back, and we did some rifle PT and some. There's a bunch of SF guys out there laughing right now, like, you had your kid doing rifle PT in the mud. It's like, yep. And he's never stolen anything since then.
Yeah.
His entire life. But it was just one of those things where it was like, hey man, like that was like that time where like you couldn't spank your kids anymore. Not that I spank my kids anyways, because I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
But what I've learned with kids, if you take time from them, they respond to that.
Yeah.
So I took time from him, but I made him do something he just didn't want to do. It wasn't bad. It wasn't physically killing. I say rucksack. He had like 10 pounds maybe.
Yeah.
Just enough to make it uncomfortable and a couple blisters on his feet. But yeah, make them do something they don't want to do, that there's a lesson learned there, and take time from them.
Yeah.
We had some good conversations and stuff. It was like 6 hours we walked.
Yeah.
No, it was more than that. It was like 8-hour day. We left at like 5 a.m. And then we got home, and then I dusted him off in the river in the back until Danielle got home. And she's like, "Where are you guys?" And I was like, "Oh, just go in the backyard." And then we came walking out of the woods. He was black from head to toe with this black mud.
With the dirt, yeah.
It was amazing. But, but my son remembers that still to this day at 17, and he laughs about it now, but he's like, he understands what that is. So that's one of those things now where it's like my relationship with my kids, circling back to relationship, is what do I owe? Kids are a different topic because you're committed. You're committed to some shit.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
You made a decision, so that's totally different. Like when you make a decision to be married, you still have somebody that can take care of themselves if you decide to neglect that relationship for the most part.
Hopefully, yeah.
Kids, on the other hand, are like, until they hit a certain age, dude, like you gotta like help them along.
Yeah.
Or they're gonna like kill them, run in traffic and get run over by a damn car, for crying out loud. Like you're responsible for another human being. So it's a different conversation, but I've always been because I haven't been around, not because I'm a shitty dad, because I was deployed overseas so much. But I've always been very conscious about the time that I've had with my kids when I was home and how important that relationship. So back to, these things where like parents, they latch on to like my purpose in life for my kids. It's like, dude, you are going to be miserable when your kid is 30 and he's like, dude, I got my own kids. I don't stop.
Well, can your purpose change?
It can change,
it evolve?
but that's the thing where if you were just in service of the relationships, because that relationship's going nowhere.
Yeah.
But you as a parent is changing. It's inevitably changing. Because people are like, oh, you're always a parent. It's like, no, you're not, dude. What's the definition of a parent? It's somebody that takes care of another human being's. You're like, when people get old, you almost circle right back around to being a parent because old people turn into infants essentially.
Absolutely.
And that's just the way life is. But like, at some point, what's the difference between parenting and mentoring then? Is it an age thing? Is it because they're not blood? So at what point do you just become a mentor for your kids?
Yeah.
Do you just become somebody that they can turn to for some wisdom every once in a while they're trying to figure out their own shit? You can call it parenting, you can call it mentoring, you can call it whatever. But for me, parenting shit with my son is almost over. He's now to a point where he's figuring out his own shit, and we let him do that wholeheartedly. Trinley, on the other hand, I'm still like, hey, bro, come here. Let's have a conversation real quick. Like,
Trinley's awesome, though.
Yeah, she's amazing.
I mean, they're both awesome, but we get to see Trinley more.
Yeah, Tristan's just at that point now where I think he's just not top of mind because he drives now and he works, and it's like he's like my son that's out of the house that's not out of the house. Like, we don't really see him that much, and he's just a good person.
Yep, absolutely.
And I know he's going to be fine. He's going to do his thing.
Have you talked him into travel yet?
Man, I'm trying to get him to take that trip to Germany and work in that resort. But
that'd be awesome.
I don't know. But dude, when I was 20, did I listen to some 38-year-old dickhead giving me advice? No. I went and stumbled through life on my own. So that's the other thing too, that I just want him to go out and fail like a motherfucker, and he'll be fine. His foundation is where it needs to be, and he's not going to go out and rape, murder, and pillage. So
yeah.
Had a really big about leaving things better than you got it. And so with those two, definitely going to leave this life better than I got it. So maybe that's where my relationship with myself is so peaceful now, because that ideal of like, it's already better than I got it.
But you're not done.
No, I'm not. No, for sure. But at the end of the day, I can definitively hang my hat on that.
Yeah.
It's better than I got it.
You're not resting on your laurels.
No. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying that if my shit ended today,
yeah, you'd still feel good about it.
Yeah, I fucking left it better than I got it. So, but I'm trying to leave every day and every moment better than I got it now. So now it's gone to this big picture thing of like parenting, and let's leave these things better, and let's have these great relationships with our kids, to now it's getting more micro, which is now getting back to that point of like, how do you create presence in life?
Yeah.
It's like, well, the idea of just leaving every moment better than you got it, how can you be any more present than that?
How can you give so much attention to various things, though? Like, leaving every moment better than it was. It's a lot of attention to expend on work and home and
not
relationship.
Really, because I'm not worried about, okay, so let's just count this moment right now. Let's just say this next 90-minute podcast is like a moment.
Yeah.
I'm only trying to leave this conversation better than we started it, or when we got it, or our relationship together better than when you first came in the door. That's my only mission right now.
Yeah.
Not to make Trinley better, not to make Tristan better, not to worry
really
about
focused on one thing at a time.
One thing. This moment.
Okay. All right.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
My head just exploded.
It's hard for me.
But that's the thing. I know that like there's probably some moments within this podcast where, and this is normal because I do it. Like, I'm thinking about farm to fork tonight on what I'm going to order. Like, that's coming into my brain, and then, you know, I'm super weird. Intimacy is like is a big thing with me and Danielle, and I'm like going through the Rolodex. I'm like, yeah, tonight's gonna be a good night. I'm just a weird dude like that. But those are part of connection and marriage that mine and Danielle's relationship has been. It's just a part of our habit and our routine, and it's something that I'm conscious about. And, you know, if my brain floats there, I have to honor
Yeah.
the moment that I'm in, which is me and you right now, currently, and revisit those thoughts and those moments at another time.
Yeah.
Essentially, it doesn't mean that the energy won't eventually go there because it's inevitable. Those are things that I value. I'm gonna think about them eventually, but as it sits right now, it's this conversation and us exploring this idea that purpose is the service of the relationships and the experiences around those relationships in your life. And if you spend your life making every moment better than you got it, which is always an inner, because you're not just going to be like, and I say that, but it's like, even, my whole thing with playing the ukulele, like I'm trying to be better at the ukulele from when I first started in the 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes that I have a chance to play every day. So it's like, can you do it with inanimate objects? For sure, but that's also growth for yourself and curiosity and some other things. So it's you're making yourself better than you were.
Where do you feel like the individual personality fits in there? Because like you and I can squarely say we're achievers. Like we like to get things done. We like to continue learning.
I don't like the labels, man.
You don't like the labels, I know.
I like categories,
Mm-hmm.
and I like labels in the sense that they define specific stereotypes, because you got to kind of put an idea on certain things.
Yep,
like,
you got to understand.
Oh, he's an A-type, overachieving alpha male. It's like, okay, the fuck does that mean? Does that mean that?
That gives me a good mental impression of what to expect. I mean,
sort of, yeah, to an extent, but that also sets up the expectation and the perception that I'm X now.
Yeah.
Which I think, let's just use mine and
you've established.
Yeah, the thing is that most of the things that you used to think about me, now not to be true.
That's true.
Most people would probably look at me and be like, oh, he's probably got a wife at home that has dinner on the table as soon as he gets home, and he's yelling and screaming, he's the patriarch of the family and all that kind of shit, which is, it's not true.
It's not true.
My wife has her own career, her own shit, and da da da. So it's like when you start looking at those labels and these ideas of what they are, it's like it also enables people to justify their actions and be okay with specific things. Like, oh, well, I'm the patriarch husband, mid-30s, I'm supposed to this. And so now I'm justifying specific behavior that may not necessarily be good or healthy for me. But you have to at least recognize that, no, dude, I'm more than guilty of this shit. I was a special forces husband, father, gym owner. Mm-hmm. That was my definition. And when all those things got fucked up and in a riff, I was lost.
Yep.
I couldn't sit back and be like, no, dude, you're Dave Hall. You like thought-provoking movies. You like to read books. You like to play the ukulele. You like to do exercise. You like to hike. You like to play with your dog. You like to travel. You have all these other things that you can do.
Yeah.
Outside of those fucking 4 labels that you put on yourself. So I think it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's a paradigm shift for sure. I wonder if everyone has the same ability to break through and focus on the growth aspect.
Well, here's the thing though, man. If you want to, I'm the CEO of this major corporation. That's who I am. It's what I do. This is my shit. Like, dude, if you embrace that for what it is and know that if you're completely good with like, oh, my marriage doesn't mean anything to me. Trample it.
Okay.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
That's your wife's problem for staying in that situation if it's not good for her.
That's true.
That's her problem.
Yeah.
That's not even his problem.
Just getting something out of it.
He's kind of money, I'm sure, but he's a dick for getting into a commitment that he wasn't willing to honor.
Yeah.
Which if he doesn't give a fuck, then it's not my problem.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is if he's like, no, dude, I'm 20 hours a day, 100 miles an hour, company. That's it. And all I want to do is put $1 million in the bank. And once I put $1 million in the bank, I want to put 2.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's a numbers game.
It's like, okay. And if that's his shit, it's like, don't wake up, 20 years from now and be like, this was the way to do it. This was, it's like, as much respect as I have for like big, huge companies and innovation and all this other kind of stuff, I use Steve Jobs as like somebody that semi-fascinated with, love to watch all of his documentaries and read articles on him and this other kind of stuff. But like, that dude didn't give a fuck about like
Nope, nothing.
nothing but like Apple.
Yep.
Like, let's just make this company huge.
It wasn't even Apple. It was just himself.
Yeah,
His
and it's
own.
like, and people say, well, if you want to be successful in business, you have, and he's the outlier he's the person that people use as an example. And it's like an example for, dude, if you want to be
Why it's okay to be a dick.
yeah, if you want to be the person that's going to create some kind of innovation that manipulates and alters the way human behavior is done every day through one specific thing, if that's your purpose in life, dude, there's like 10 people in the history of mankind that falls under.
Yep.
So if we're using them as the example, we're all fucking doomed.
Yep.
We're all
that's
doomed.
True.
We're all set up for expectations that, one, are unmeetable, and we're never going to get to. So what's the outcome in our own heads then? Failure, no matter what. And we're just going to continue chasing this thing it's not even catchable. And then there's this whole thing that like certain ideas and certain things can only happen in specific times in history. The iPhone wasn't going to happen 2 years ago. Steve Jobs was born 200 years ago. Steve Jobs isn't Steve Jobs.
Yep.
Who knows what he does, but he doesn't do like the stars and fate and all these other things had to align with innovation and
Yep.
technology being at a specific point, and certain things in his life marrying up with it. It's a perfect storm of like, oh, this is how we got the computer in our hand.
Yeah.
So it's this notion that like we're all, if we live the habits and lifestyles of Steve Jobs, is going to bring us success in business, is insanity.
Yeah.
It's insanity. The success in business is defined by the person that's executing on it. If it's $3 at the end of the month, and I'm using myself as an example. If it's $3 at the end of the month, but I changed 10 people's lives,
Yeah.
success.
Absolutely.
I was fulfilled, but here's the thing about that fulfillment: it wasn't sustainable. I understood that eventually I had to pay my house payment.
Yeah.
I had to put food on the table for my kids. So there's modern day constraints that have to do with, now, if I was smart, I would have just worked a regular job, and I would have had a CrossFit gym that was smaller, that maybe I had 25 members, and I changed 25 lives daily for one class a day. I would have met the same fulfillment requirements, but I wouldn't have done it at the detriment of the financial stability of my own family.
Is that smarter though, or is that something that?
I think it was the best thing, one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Because it was like I understood now the stresses of being that far into debt.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how the fuck I'm going to pay my mortgage every month for 5 years. But now, honestly, I diverted all that attention to Danielle and pushed a lot of that burden on her, which she just kept from me because she knew I was giving everything I had from the moment I woke up until the moment I went to bed. And she had a fear that, like, man, if I give him one extra piece of information, that I might be able to take that load. Maybe that's the thing that breaks him.
Yeah. To y'all's credit, though.
What an amazing relationship, though, for somebody to have that much care for you.
Absolutely. It was also never apparent that you guys were struggling as much as you were.
Yeah, and it's not to like lay guilt on people, but it's also one of those things where, like, as a business owner, and don't get me wrong, I have fail safes.
Yeah, I know.
I have redundancy in everything I do.
You're never going to be destitute.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm never going to put my family in a car and live under a bridge on Mopac.
Yep.
So I always had redundancies in everything I did. But with that being said, dude, when people say, "Oh, I'm all in my business," it's like, were you really?
Yeah.
Because I can show you all in.
Yeah.
I can fucking show you all in, man. of working every extra hour you can just to make an extra buck, outside of the 80 hours that you're putting into your business.
Yeah.
Outside of, dude, we pulled $175,000 of extra credit cards and unsecured loans and personal loans and money we borrowed from family members to keep our business rolling. And it got to a point where we didn't have to borrow money anymore, and that's the point. Like, but are you willing to sit down and bankrupt yourself for the success of your own business?
Yeah.
And most business owners would be like,
Nope.
no. It's like, okay, well, you're probably not going to make it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're probably not going to make it, dude, because you have to be willing. Now, I'm not saying you should go get
Go
in
bankrupt,
$175,000 in debt and have to file bankruptcy. What I'm saying is you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to lose everything. And this is what's fucked up about it. Dude, I put my family in that shit. I put my kids in that shit. I was willing to sacrifice all of those relationships to make that thing successful. So now, purpose in life. Live a life by example to inspire others to be their elite.
Yeah.
So my purpose now is solely revolved around the success of that gym. And I found nothing but misery. Fucking pure, like, not in every moment, but if I were to wrap it up in a big package and be like, how do you feel right now?
Yeah.
Fucking miserable. I have zero connection with my wife. I never see my kids. All my members, from my perception, I make this shit up, right? Because they're questioning every decision you ever make. They'll fucking hate me.
Yep.
Because I'm trying to do what's best for them all the time.
But they didn't.
No, but they didn't. Of course,
Yeah.
I know they didn't. And it's like, that's what I talk about, the danger of purpose when you put a task on it. Now, had I been like, I would have found a lot more peace, and this is where I find peace now, knowing that I still have 15 really close members that I still talk to.
Yeah.
I have coaches that were there for me in my most dire moments. I've got a wife out of this thing. So if I really look back at some of the stuff now that I'm serving and I'm continuing longevity in those experiences with specific people, it's around the relationships that were built around that task.
Yeah.
And the ones that were disingenuous or had different agendas or were looking for different things all fell by the wayside and left along with my purpose at the time, which was the gym.
Yeah.
Are all gone now. But I still took those relationships out of that, and I still serve those things daily with a good relationship with myself, and have now created and further expanded on my experiences with all those other people. And that's what wakes me up every day and puts a smile on my face and
Get you going.
gives me peace. Knowing that the service of those relationships that were connected to the thing that I was defining as my purpose. So at the end of the day, my special forces career is over, but I have SF dudes that I just had lunch with one last week, and it was supposed to be an hour lunch, and we spent 3 hours together, and we bullshitted about everything and talked about our kids. And I'm gonna have that relationship for the rest of my life. And then I had relationships that touched me so deeply from guys that aren't here anymore that impact me still every day in some of my thought process and some of the things I do. So, my purpose to get up and just have a good relationship with myself and leave things better than I got them are all associated with this weird obligation to what those people gave me out of the relationship, what they fed into me.
Yeah.
And so what am I giving back reciprocally? Am I honoring that relationship in the way they live their lives?
Yeah.
Which is such a weird dynamic, because it's like, wait, I'm supposed to just live in positivity and have this amazing relationship with myself and find positivity in everything to deepen other relationships with other people. So it's like, it always is going to circle back and revert back to yourself. Like, is my body healthy? Do I have good energy? are my emotions in check? Did I deal with things that were sad with me last month when, when that teammate got killed? Did I actually find peace around his death and meaning in it and these other kind of things? Yeah. If I can honestly sit back and say, yeah, then that relationship and that connection with myself is solid.
Yeah.
And now I can deeply connect with other people and talk about ideas and growth. And it's just not revolved around shit anymore.
Yeah. So I can always tell when I'm not there yet because there's so many questions around what you're saying that are unanswered for me. But, and I know on this one, I'm totally not there yet, but your purpose being the best you that you can possibly be. I know that I'm not there yet. But like I just went through a major career shift like a year ago, and for me the past year has been crazy for many reasons, but also because like I lost my identity when I left one job and had to create a new identity for myself when I went to the next job.
You think you lost your identity.
Yeah.
You just changed your career.
Exactly. And in the big scheme of things, 10 years from now, it's not going to matter.
Well, just real quick before I lose that thought.
Yeah.
That thing, the idea of like, I want to be the best possible me and the potential of me, and I'm just not there yet, is not being here right now.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at what you possibly can be. The idea that there's growth in you, because eventually physical growth is going to stop.
Yeah.
It's fucking inevitable. So then it's spiritual growth just takes over from there.
Yeah.
When that flip happens is going to be different for everybody depending on how healthy you are in your body and what you feed it, and diseases that we can't get away from for some people, and so forth and so forth. But trying to find a measurement of what that looks like, the idea is that one, there's no end game. Your potential of your best you doesn't exist. That's not a fucking thing. What does that mean? My potential for me is my hair is down to the middle of my back and I weigh 102 pounds, not 103, and I sleep 8 hours and 13 minutes, not 8 hours and 12. I'm not like, what's the standard of the measurement of the best possible me? There's no fucking such thing.
But everyone has that in their head.
I know, but that's what I'm trying to make the point, is that you are the best you right now. Based on what?
I don't agree with that, so I don't know.
Based on what, though? Think about that for a minute. How are you right now?
This is where it gets hard for me.
Your choices.
Yeah, your choices and your priorities put you in the position.
No, your choices. Fuck priorities and values and all the other shit aside. Like, I know you need to acknowledge those, and we need to understand what drives us and what our motivations are for whatever. But the fact of the matter is until you embrace the fact that, like, I'm where I'm at right now, sitting in this chair, drinking this rum because of my fucking choices and nobody else.
Yeah.
Not because my fucking dad beat me when I was little. Not because my wife had an affair on me. Not because my fucking business partner left me. Because I fucking chose to be here.
Yep.
I chose to have reactions based on certain emotions, based on what other people did. So whether or not you want to embrace those for what they are or not is nobody's shit but yours. Unless somebody fucking kidnaps you and puts you in a fucking container. And the reason I'm bringing this up because this actually happened recently, and it's a fucking heartbreaking story. But the girl was freed, thank goodness. But how she's going to deal with that for the rest of her life is obviously going to be a battle and a struggle for sure.
Yeah.
But unless somebody actually physically takes you away and forces you, and don't get me wrong, this happens all over the world, and this is where I think people get really upset about like, oh, America is the world's police force, and maybe we have our fingers in shit that we shouldn't supposed to, and da 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 da, and we're only interested in economics and money and whatever. Oh, cool. The fact of the matter is there are people that are genuinely taking people's free will, and even just free will. Like, you can't even fucking sit in your living room and read a book.
Yeah.
Like, you literally can't even do that. We don't have that issue here in America. So for all you people that are like, oh, fucking politics and the next president and my life's fucking shit because I grew up in this neighborhood and all this other kind of, dude, fuck, man. Like, you have opportunities that are there. You're running a race. I got it. If we were born on the same day and the same time and you had different circumstances than I did, whether that be what neighborhood you grew up in or what race you are or your parents or whatever the case may be, I got it. Like, if we want to call it white privilege or whatever the fuck you want to call it, dude, I'm starting, let's call it a football field. I'm starting on the 50-yard line. You're on the 10. I got it. I fucking got it, dude. But the fact of the matter is you can still run the race.
Yeah.
You can still run the race, dude. Like, there's people that don't even get to fucking run the race, man. So it's frustrating to me. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. We've got to figure out a way to close the gap to where we're all running from the same fucking start point. And it's going to be super hard. But unless that's happening in our world specifically, in America, in the U.S., you fucking make your own choices.
It's true.
Like, you just do, man. And so, like, until you will never find peace if you don't embrace that everything you have is your fault. It's nobody else's fault.
It's true. It's not the fault that bothers me. It's the, like,
Why me? Yeah.
Really?
Why me?
Yeah.
Dude, when Danielle read and we had an affair that night, the first fucking thing that came to my mind was like, why the fuck did you do that to me?
To you, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? Why me?
Yeah.
Everything I've fucking done for you. And that's what we all do. We're like, dude, I've given this life everything. Why is it shitting on me? We go back to this, right? Life doesn't give a fuck about what you deserve.
It's true.
Doesn't care. So it's a hard conversation until you can embrace that you are exactly where you are today based on your decisions. Because the moment you leave your fucking house and you decide to like take a job and create your own logistics and take care of yourself as a human being, dude, everything from then on
your choice
is your fault, man. It's your choice. You chose to go in fucking $200,000 in debt for fucking college. It was your fault. You fucking said, yeah, I'll fucking sign that.
Yep.
Dude, you went and bought a $60,000 car when you can only afford a $30,000 car. Dude, I've been there. I fucking lost everything, man. Like, I get it, dude. Though I embrace that for what that was. Nobody was like, oh, well, I had to do that because of the gym and I had pressures of the fucking clients. Yeah, those are factors.
Yeah.
But I still had to make a decision based on those factors. And I fucking embrace all of those things. And I think that's probably part of the thing is that I embrace them for mine.
Yeah.
I own them. I'm not letting anybody take that shit from me. Yeah, did they contribute to some of the shit?
Yeah.
Did some of my one of my business partners went silent. The other one fucked my wife, and the other one took a job in another state and just fucking left.
Yeah.
Could I have taken control of the businesses?
You could have.
I could have.
Yep.
So people are like, "Oh my god, dude, you lost your businesses because of the shit they did." No.
Mm-mm.
I left the fucking businesses based on those factors, but it was still my decision.
Yep.
I didn't have to give those up. It was my decision. My emotions that I created couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
So people would be like, "Oh, you weren't tough enough for the gym business and fitness." Maybe.
Yeah.
I wasn't tough enough for the circumstances and the situation as it unfolded.
Yeah.
In that moment. But I challenge any one of you other motherfuckers to sit in that shit.
That's true, yeah.
And be like,
I was trying to think. I was like, I don't
and
think I
that's
would've made it
why
that long.
when people make decisions, I'm like, fuck man, I got your back.
Yeah.
Because dude, I don't I don't know how many hours a night you're sleeping because you and your wife's relationship's broken. I don't know if your kids are fucking troublemakers and you're dealing with that. I don't know what your finances look like. I don't know if your dad was a drunken alcoholic and beat you for fucking 18 years until you left the house. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to assume that you grew up with a perfect scenario and you're just being an asshole now.
Yeah.
And you're not honoring your commitments because you're just a fucking piece of shit. I'm never going to assume that in somebody.
That's good. So in Dave Hall world, in your brain, say you go into a scenario where you just have a shitty day. Sorry, I'm hitting the microphone.
Which happens?
You have a shitty day. I'm going to say at work. Like you blow up at somebody over something. You handle a situation incorrectly.
Yeah.
Someone comes to you and says, like, you handled that really badly. And you still react badly to it. What resets you, or like how do you get back to the path where you're happy with yourself?
Well, I don't dodge that scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, because most people, especially business owners with ego, and I've been guilty of this before, and I had to sit back and acknowledge these long after these people moved on and left, and was like, "What the fuck?" And normally it's something big happens.
Yeah.
But I've learned slowly over time that like those explosions, you're gonna have to have a conversation about it again eventually.
Yeah.
Most people won't have the conversation again.
Oh, I will, but
you know what I mean? Like they'll have this blow up, and people do this in their marriages too. They have this blow up, and then they're like, "Wow, fuck you, no, fuck you," and then they just part ways. And then they like wake up in the morning and they're like brushing their teeth together, and it's like not really spoken. And then another day goes by, and then they come back that night, and then they're just kind of cordially talking.
It just lives in the
This
silence.
is on Monday. Yeah. Then by Friday, it's like you guys are back in the habits and routines of what your marriage was, and you never talked about it.
Yep.
I'll give you a perfect example. This is funny. So Danielle, this is Tuesday.
Oh no.
Yeah, Tuesday this week. And this is again one of those things that I'm sitting back, and we had the conversation yesterday about it, me and Danielle. She brought this device home. This has to do with her work, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about their work. I just had a question.
Yeah.
She had it was like a sleep device. And I said, "What are you doing with the sleep device?" And she goes, "Well, I got to get a baseline." I'm like, "A baseline for what?" And I'm like, "You're a fucking dentist."
For her sleep levels.
Well, what's a dentist dealing with sleep for? This is what I'm thinking in my head. But curiosity was like, hey, and I think Danielle just knows me more intimately and was like, oh, he's just getting ready to be a dick and like sharpshoot us, which I can totally understand because I've probably done that to her before. But I'm like genuinely like, a baseline for what? She's like, well, I'll just see if I'm going through the different sleep cycles and da-da-da-da. And I've done sleep cycles and studies, or not sleep cycles, sleep studies with an actual sleep doctor.
Yeah.
A guy that specializes in sleep.
Yep.
That's what he does. He's got a medical doctorate degree in sleep. So I'm like, and I go, yeah, but for what? And she like kind of starts going on defensive mode, like, whoa, we're just trying to be more integrative as dentists. And I'm like, the fuck does that mean? For what? What are you going to do? How does a dentist,
More
once you have
holistic.
that information, what are you going to do? And that's what I start, and now I start getting defensive. That's why I said, well, you guys are fucking dentists. Like, what are you going to get with that information? Are you going to put a filling in? Like because now I'm being a dick, right? Because she got defensive, and this is normal marriage behavior. One gets defensive, the other one's like, it's like, who makes the first move to get defensive, and then the other one's going to go on the offensive / defensive, and then next thing you know, everyone's in this like, this wasn't the intent of the conversation,
standoff,
but we're already here now, and egos start getting into this thing.
Yeah.
And she starts like, then she started talking down to me as an educated dental hygienist.
Can't imagine.
Yeah, right. And I was like, almost kind of degrading to an extent that like, hey, like, you shoot guns, just stick to your shit. And then she was like, well, you guys as coaches, tiptoe in other areas and arenas, and
Yeah.
like tried to. And I'm like, well, what? And I was like, dude, I've never.
Not true.
Are you talking about physical therapy? Are you talking about nutritionists? Are you talking about, dude, I've never once looked at somebody's blood levels and been like, we're going to add some more avocados to get these hormones level better. Like, there's been no, it's like, no,
No,
dude,
but you give us sleep advice and supplement advice.
sleep
and-
8 hours.
Yeah.
That's it. Turn off your
Turn off all
electronics
your
an
electronics
hour.
and your lights.
So
Yeah.
how did that
No blue light.
basic biology of information have anything to do with
Okay.
anything else?
All right. Keep going.
And so I got super fucking pissed off. And I was like, I'm out. This conversation's fucking over. I'm out. And she knew I was fucking pissed. So
You
the
got
next
pissed
day,
over that.
yeah, like I'm not okay. So here's the deal. I treat you as an equal,
Yeah.
no matter what.
You were shitting on her device.
No, I was not asked a question.
Okay.
I asked a simple question. Here's the deal. If you ever start to, I don't give a fuck what your degree's in or what the conversation is or whatever. If you ever start degrading somebody to
Yeah,
make them feel
that's
like
true.
they're not an equal as a human being in a conversation, I'm fucking out.
Yeah.
And if I'm in a conversation where I see somebody else doing it to somebody else, I'm in defense of the weaker human in that situation. It's got me in a lot of trouble before because I've been like, no, fucking stop that conversation right now. Because you're not going to sit here and talk to this guy like that. I don't give a fuck how smart you are about this conversation. Be a human being and explain it to them intellectually so they can understand it. Don't be an
Yeah.
asshole. Like, what's your fucking problem?
That's true.
So, and I understand that about me to where I become super defensive to the person that's being demeaned
Yeah.
to a weaker level to make them feel weak in a specific situation. I just don't like that. I like people to feel empowered. I want the conversation to always make everybody involved to feel empowered, that they're either contributing or a part of it, or they can do something that's beyond what they think they can.
Yeah.
And so she kind of started taking this like defensive stance of like, that's what, and I was like, oh, okay, that's how you're going to fucking take it? Okay. I'm out. I'm emotionally even out of this relationship now. That's how fucking pissed I got. And she kind of acknowledged it, but then she also was like, well, she tried to send me a text the next morning. Like, you were being defensive about it too. And of course I'm like, okay, that's my response. Okay. She knows when I'm mad because I'll just respond with, okay.
Yep.
No booty pics, no kissy faces, no, when are you going to get home so I can get my hands on you? It's okay.
Okay.
And so she knows. So that's my sign of like, hey, you better create a space of communication
Yeah.
soon. To her credit, she came home for lunch the next day. She was like, oh man. And she tried to speak to me on what's one of my most favorite things on the planet. And I said, nice try, lady. Not going to happen. Which is really hard for me. And I was like, no, dude, I'm not ready to have this conversation yet. I don't want to have it yet because I'm still pissed about it and I'm still trying to figure out why I'm pissed about it.
Yeah.
And so that night, same thing. And I was like, nope, I still haven't processed why I'm so fucking pissed about this. And so this is me acknowledging that, like, I don't know why I was so mad.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like pissed. Like, I wasn't like, oh, fuck, break shit. I was just like, okay, I'm emotionally done with you right now. And I don't know why. But I'm going to figure it out. So I wasn't ignoring it. I was like, that's when you text me and you're like, what are you doing today? And I was like, vegging out on the couch.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to like,
think it through.
why is this bothering me so bad? Why
Yeah.
did that, what part of my personality, my characteristics did that tick? And it was, I don't want people to feel demeaned and weakened in conversations based on some kind of superiority complex from some other person. I just don't like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, that's what it was. So
I can't imagine Miss D having a superiority complex over anyone, but okay.
no, it wasn't like that, but that's how I took it, right?
Yeah.
So another night goes by. She wakes up next day, sends me a bunch of texts or something, and finally I'm like, okay, I know what it is. So I shot her a big ass long text, and I was like, no, dude, I just tried to ask you a fucking simple question, and you went into this asshole mode. Blah 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 blah. What I just explained. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry I made you feel like that. And then she came home that night and we made out.
That was it.
But here's what's funny about that conversation. yeah, I needed time to figure out what the fuck was going on in my head. Should I, which is what we do 99% of the time. This is very rare for us
Yeah.
to lose because I don't like losing time. Time is infinite.
Yeah.
But my time, what has been given to me, is finite, and I don't want to give a lot of that away trying to figure out bullshit because that was a bullshit conversation. I should have just been like, "Oh, cool, sleep study, let's make out," but I didn't for whatever reason. So I don't like giving away days. So I lost 2 days of potential connection and growth with a relationship that I value. But I also was confused in my own shit to try to figure out why that bothered me so bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the right answer is. Should I have processed to try to figure out what that was, or should I have talked it out and had another person help me figure out what it was?
Probably should have talked it out.
I don't know. I think
Would have
that
gotten some time back.
I think there is a balance of when you have to sit solo and when you lean on the relationships that you have. Because at what point do you become a burden on another relationship if you're just doing that all the time? That's what people say, that's what relationships are for, but that's not true. Because you can't just like be this one side of the relationship just can't be a punching bag for the other person that's just like, fuck, I'm trying to figure some more shit out again today.
Okay.
Listen up, motherfucker.
That's true.
And that just being a habitual cycle of like that's what the relationship is, because that's something that I think needs to be acknowledged. Like, am I doing that in my relationship right now? So anyways, that's my example of I wasn't okay with the relationship with myself
Yeah.
in that specific argument, and I couldn't figure out why. So instead of ignoring it and burying that shit,
Yeah.
because what would have ended up happening is we would have 3 months from now, she would
Had
have,
that same
yeah,
conversation.
she would have brought home some fucking device for, I don't know, vision or something. I'm like, what the fuck is the dentist doing with vision now, or whatever? I'm just making a joke, but and I wouldn't have had the tools to figure out how to process that in the moment.
Yeah.
So that's what happens when you ignore lessons. You lose the tools
Absolutely.
to process those things in the future. So I lose 2 days here. 3 months from now, I lose another 2 days.
Yeah.
A week later, I lose a week because that one was just a little bit more traumatic than the other two. And I just keep ignoring this lesson that's sitting in front of me because I don't just sit back and go, wait the fuck on, hold on a second. What was going on in my brain? Why did that bother me? Why did I make that such a negative thing? Why is my energy being put out like this? Okay. Oh, that's what it was.
So say you're 10 years into these like bearing emotions and silences, hospitable silences.
Mm-hmm.
What are your first moves to start regaining ground there?
Well, I think until you know yourself, you know what your nuances are, your characteristics, what you stand for, what your values are. What are these ideas that, I know my shit is like honesty, integrity, emotional intelligence. I know there's specific things, honoring my body, the pursuit for knowledge. Like I know there's specific things about me that are like, these are the things that make me tick. These are the things that really piss me off. These are like my pet peeves. Mm-hmm. These are the things that I can't let go.
Yeah.
This other shit bother me, but they just roll right off me for the most part. What are the shit that I can't really let go? And then, do those things exist in the relationship that I value most in life? Like, are they there?
Yeah.
Because if they are, what's my role in them? And now this is where that like brutal honesty comes in. Like, am I the 100% contributor to that specific thing? Or do I feel that he's 100% contributor to that thing, or she? So it's like where you start getting into, and people will start having this conversation with themselves like, oh, well, I'm just a fucking piece of shit now. I'm just like, fuck, man, I'm the one doing this. I'm this. And it's like, no, dude, you just have things that you're human. You have things that bother you. You just refuse to acknowledge that they do,
Yeah.
and then they contribute into the relation that you have instead of you guys figuring out a way that's a common ground to deal with it or let it go, or you don't even know if it's happening or it's not happening because you're not even having the conversation about it. So it's got to start with you on like, what are you contributing into the things that you feel are missing? And then the other thing too is you may have what you claim is a need. I need you to give me 60 minutes every day of undivided attention. And it's like, at what point are your needs just unrealistic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, who the fuck's going to sit down and be like, okay, well, I just have to stop everything at 6 p.m. every day and like rub your feet and make out with you and hold your hand. Like, fuck, man, this is an amazing. Where's this chick at? I need this hour every day. It's funny, I have that hour every day, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in that hour. But I think it's a where we found middle ground on it. It's every night. We set a sun timer for 60 minutes. We try to, for the most part, every night, and that's where we laugh and we joke and we talk about the day and we have a ton of sex, and then we laugh and we joke a little bit more, and we sort of every day we talk about the gratitude. Every day in that 60 minutes, it's normally post sex.
You're grateful for a lot more, right?
Well, it's a weird little phrase. But this is every day. This is every day. We sit down. How was your day? What's going on? Laugh and joke. Normally, we're just being really fucking stupid, just trying to enjoy each other's company. Get intimate, and then I'll just literally just be laying there and just like tell me something good. That's it. And she'll normally that I super love you. I'm like, and I'll just keep saying, tell me something good. And she'll be like, well, I'm just really excited about our last week, our trip to Portland, and we're gonna have so much fun. We're gonna do this, and it's like, oh, okay. Super grateful for the opportunity to be able to travel with you this week. It's like, oh, cool. And then same thing back from my end. And then normally by that point, the sun timer is going out and pretty much asleep at that point. Daniel falls asleep in about 3 seconds. And then I sit there and contemplate the world for, 30 minutes to an hour or something. Just depends.
It's about right.
But, yeah, I think setting up a safe space where there's no judgment, where if you don't know who you are completely and you have your partner that can tell you things about yourself, as long as you're open and willing to receive feedback.
Yeah.
A lot of the times it leads to fights because people aren't ready to hear what their partner thinks about them.
Yep.
Because then it's like, oh, my partner doesn't love me and they fucking hate me, and what am I supposed to? I can't believe you think that about me. And it's like, your reaction will dictate how safe that space actually is. And then what'll end up happening is you do it one time where you have that reaction on what they tell you, and that safe space of communication will be closed for a long time.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to feel comfortable until that initial shock and feeling sort of dilutes with time. And everybody's timeline is going to be different. Me and Danielle have just gotten to a point where it's like nothing's off the table.
Yeah.
And it's like a day or two most.
Yeah.
For anything. We're like, nope, fuck it. Let's have this conversation. Oh, I didn't know. Yeah, I can see how you felt like that. Man, I was a fucking dick. Cool. And let it go. But nobody wants to hear like, well, every day when you come home and you flick your fucking shoes there for the past 10 years and you throw your underwear in the corner of the thing, and then when you shave in the sink and you don't wash your hair down the sink, it's been driving me fucking nuts for 10 years. or
All the little things. Yeah.
yeah, or like you haven't come home in 6 months and even come up and grab me from behind and told me you love me and kiss me or whatever,
Yeah.
you know. And Danielle's, we always use Danielle. Obviously, she's one of the, I'm talking about relationships, so it's easy for me to say this, but like she was at one point in our marriage she was waking up at 4:30 every day, going to the gym, exercising, showering at the gym, heading heading to work, at lunch, paying all the bills, in between patients, shooting me texts, checking up on me. Get off of work at 4:30, head to the gym, exercise again at 5, coach a class or something at 6, come home, rush home, cook dinner, feed everybody dinner while chicken's frying on the oven, running laundry from all the bedrooms into the laundry room, doing laundry. And me, I'm sitting on the chair being like, fuck man, it'd really be nice if she just came over here and gave me a little kiss. And
But she's doing all the things.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. But that in her eyes, she's like, look how much I love you guys.
That's her love language, yeah.
You know, and me, I'm like, this fucking chick hates me. She won't even acknowledge I even exist as she's carrying my laundry and cooking my dinner.
Yep.
You know, is this unspoken shit that happened for 6 years, probably.
Yeah.
6 or 7 years at one point. But also there's all that like bearing all the lies and the betrayal and all that other kind of shit. So there's a lot of shit mixed into that pot outside of just that. But did that contribute to the fact that, so for a lot of people out there, if you haven't read the 5 love languages, go read that, take the test and try to, and then sit down and have that space with no judgment.
Yeah.
And just like,
it's the important part.
Yeah. Well, and start off with, don't worry about trying to fix the marriage. Start off with a space of like, what's the most embarrassing thing you've never told me? It could be a desire or a fantasy around sex. It could be when I was fucking 12 years old, I was here and this happened to me. Whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And just create like this almost comical space of like, it's okay to have this embarrassing thing, and I'm not going to judge you for it. It's just going to be like, oh shit, I don't know why you never told me that. That's actually really funny or whatever. And slowly start chipping away at creating an area where you guys can just sit down and just let literally anything out. Anything. Daniel, there's not a thing on this planet that Daniel doesn't know about me. Literally nothing. Not emotions around anything. My childhood, friends lost, parenting, fears around all my business stuff, the stresses of losing X, Y, and Z, the relationships I feel that are falling apart, sexual desires and fantasies, everything. Like there's nothing. So
next time you guys have a relationship podcast, ask her about how that feels for her. I want to know the answer to that.
To know everything, the
know everything.
The burden of knowing another human being shit.
Yeah, all of it though.
All of it.
All of it. I think I've asked her before, and she just said, "I've never known it any other way. Like this is how we do it."
Well, so if you really look at like, you know, everything circles back to that relationship for me. Even my kids. I hate to. No one wants to say like, "Oh, my kids aren't the most important thing." They're not. Danielle is the most important thing. The most important relationship.
Yeah.
Because I understand that the strength and the bond and the connection of that relationship is what strengthens the connection with the relationship with my kids. Because it's a paternal thing that like kids want to see the relationships. They want to see an example of the relationships around them.
Yeah.
Thriving. So they want to see me in a relationship with myself that's good and stable and healthy for me, that puts a smile on my face and brings me peace. And then they want to see they want to see Danielle in the same space. And that reciprocal connection between our relationship with ourselves, connecting me and her together, and understanding that like there's beauty and good in that, and that's all they need to see in life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an important thing with us. Like my kid is super sensitive And sometimes we don't realize it because he doesn't communicate a lot with anybody else. And we forget that the conversations we have around him
Yeah.
are just as important as the conversations we have with him.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's hard. I have, and there's parents are just like, we just learned this because we started really young and fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And it's like, you take energy to put into another human being, i.e. raising infants and children and getting them into a certain space, and you don't realize that you lose that connection with your partner, the one that you committed
Absolutely.
to, the one that you committed to first. And it's okay. It's just you have to recognize it at some point. And the thing is there's a lot of people that I think waited too long, and their marriages didn't work out and they didn't last, and that's okay. But I think you need to acknowledge like what got you there and what were those things, and how was I disconnected from myself, and how did that contribute to the disconnection of my partner, which now is the disconnection of my kids. So how in return do I work on that? Well, the connection with myself has to be first and foremost. And then if I'm bringing in another partner, and then create another healthy relationship with their father or mother, which is, I know this firsthand because my mom hated my father and had nothing but shitty things to say. I didn't know my dad till I was 8 or 9.
Yeah.
We got shipped off for Christmas one year.
Because she got left for a year.
She got hard up financially. All I heard was that this dude is a piece of shit, which he's not. I love my dad to death. He's an awesome dude. I probably need to call him today. Sorry, Dad. I didn't know anything, but he's just a piece of shit and signed you over and left you guys, and he's an asshole father and da 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 da. And he had another family in Tennessee, Kentucky / Tennessee, that he got married and had another kid and some other stuff, and just got a call out of the blue like, hey, I need some help with these fucking kids. I'm sending them to you. And at like 8 or 9, you're like, I'm going to be with my dad.
Yeah.
You don't know. That's a whole other conversation, but just so I understand that, like, how fucking weird that was that my mom didn't have a good relationship with herself because she was young, 16, 17 when she had me and my brother, and then not able to put emotions correctly into her children because she didn't even understand her emotions with herself. So now us in return, just wandering around, me and my brother, like, you have that connection because you guys are your brothers and you're in the same house and you sleep together, and it's just the commonality of the situation, the circumstance that you're in. We're just doing our thing. Just no fucking consequences about no, we didn't know right from wrong or nothing. We're just doing life.
Yeah.
Of whatever makes sense to a fucking 5-year-old until my stepdad came when I was 12, 13, whatever. They're still married till this day, so 30 years or whatever. So yeah, that's just one of those things where just because, your marriage didn't work out, I don't understand how you can create so much ill will and hate towards somebody because you guys just didn't work out.
Because your opinion is the only opinion that exists in your world.
Yeah,
it's the only
but
thing you can understand.
From what I saw, this is just based on my own situation, was that she had more self-hate towards herself than she actually did on my father.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think
Sure.
that's where I think in so many different situations, until you actually sit back and be like, fuck, where the fuck am I? Physically, emotionally, in this journey of my own life and this relationship with myself, before I start looking to cultivate any other relationship outside of what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, circling back, and as we start wrapping this thing up, that's why I that whole idea of like purpose, for me, it's just the relationships first and foremost that starts with yourself, because I think you could just be, sitting on some abandoned island by yourself, just having a good time, just eating good food and maybe exercising every day. Yeah, you're gonna be lonely as shit, but at the end of the day, like, if you're perspective on like, well, I could be dead and I've been this gift of like sun life and these animals and whatever. I'm sure you can find all kinds of peace. But at the end of the day, like if I didn't have special forces and I didn't have my businesses and I didn't have all this other kind of shit, if I woke up underneath a bridge on Mopac in my car with Danielle's smiling face,
You'd be fine.
nothing else wouldn't mean a fucking thing to me. And I would be like, well, there's that. That's just is what it is. So I think purpose, we need to start rethinking around the tasks of that and really cultivating our own internal positive energy in the relationship with ourselves, and then how we use that in service of the other relationships and the experiences that we're trying to get out of those. And I think that's the actual purpose of human beings in life.
I'm going to agree with that. I think you've talked me around, but I feel like we've come a long way this year just as people, and that makes a lot more sense to me now than it probably would have a year ago. But
yeah, I think there's definitely a point in your life where you start to question all of that.
Yeah.
Because there were times where none of this shit meant anything to me.
Yeah.
I was just like, well, fucking going to Czech Republic this month. What's the next mission? It's my purpose in life. Train other people to hunt down bad guys and hunt down bad guys myself. Yeah. Purpose. It's like
mission focused.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
But I talked about it a little bit, peeling back those layers of creating relationships with other people for them to have better opportunities in their lives was the purpose. But it just did it through service in the military.
And that mission wouldn't have existed without the culture around you and without the people that you were serving. So
so I think creating that environment for you and then cultivating the relationships is what will create longevity in all your shit. You can dig ditches and be the happiest motherfucker on the planet if everybody you go to work with are just, who you share your relationship and experiences with.
So tying on to that, so when you set goals now, or when you set priorities or whatever, you're finding a way to tie it back to your purpose.
Yeah.
So that you can reinforce that.
How is this adding to the relationship with myself first and foremost? Is this going to teach me a lesson that's going to give me a different perspective, that's going to change the way I handle other emotions and situations and scenarios of the things that I value most in life? Mm-hmm. So I'll put myself in those situations for that knowledge and those experiences and those failures and those successes, because I know it's going to give me tools based on to further grow and deepen the connection of what's actually important to me.
So is knowing yourself liking yourself?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, if you don't love yourself, man, getting to, that'll be a whole nother podcast, I guess, but self-hate, getting out of self-hate, finding worth in yourself, and it's, I don't want to call it simple, but it can be super complex. But once you start kind of peeling back all of the complexity that you're creating, you're like, oh shit, that's fucking stupid. Yeah, that's a whole other one.
We'll hold off on that one then.
Relationships. Let's just get everybody in the idea of the idea, or the thought process around the idea that, not everybody their work is going to be their purpose. It may be a supplemental thing that enhances the longevity of your service to the relationships that you're in. And I think if you have that connection to everything that you do in life, whether you're making career changes or you're going through divorce or separation, or what I experienced back in January, the moment you sit back out of all that complexity and look at where you're at with yourself and how you can continue to move forward internally with that relationship with yourself, and how that is in service of the things that you're actually the experiences that you want out of other, because that's really at the end of the day, you want the things that you remember. Everything that I remember about businesses and everything they were just experiences. They were a compiling of experiences that just gave me tools to find peace in life. And if I hung on to the negative experiences, those are the ones that were debilitating.
Yeah.
Once I found and realized how the positive ones outweighed all the other things, and what they added to me in my life and that connection to myself, that's when I really realized that I could have a better connection with everyone around me. And now I had an exceptional relationship with myself, which in return gave me an exceptional relationship with my wife, which gave me exceptional relationships and the friends that I hold close to me. And now I have exceptional relationships within my military career. And the rest of them that I was hanging on to, they, I take the little small lessons that they give in the moments, but I'm not going to be here 5 years from now. Some of those guys aren't going to be here. They won't be. My kids aren't growing up with their kids, and our wives don't hang out. And so I just have to call those what those are. And, there's nothing wrong with like running into them at Red Horn and catching a beer. I mean, I have people that I consider good friends, but we don't talk.
Yeah.
I have a good buddy of mine. We were just texting the other day, and he's just one of those dudes that just like every 3 to 6 months we catch up and we catch a beer, and we have a lot of good positive experiences together that bonded us through the special forces. And but those aren't people that I eat dinner with on the weekends every weekend.
Yeah.
It's like these. But we know what those relationships are because he knows who he is.
Yeah.
And he knows who I am, and I think you just need to be honest about those things. But brutal honesty, find some gratitude in all the positive relationships and experiences that you have right now. Start peeling back the layers on yourself. Find out why you're disconnected from yourself first. It could be your physical body, could be not dealing with past emotions, could be, we talked about some of those things. Could be you're just lacking the knowledge around how to even connect those dots. So start turning into a student. Start reading some fucking books, man. Facebook's filled with it. People talking about how negative Facebook is. Dude, get on IdeaPod, Goldcast, Jay Shetty. Dude, them fucking guys, man, there's so much.
Your feed. Yeah.
Dude, there is so much information on there that's so good. Mm-hmm. I have them on my first notifications. And the moment I start seeing people, fucking off Facebook, man. I'm out. Fucking out.
You're not there for the social connections.
I mean, I think once a week, I'll scroll through, but it's just to see just a pulse. The world's not coming to an end. So-and-so's mom didn't pass away. Something. How am I supposed to know? It's a good way to keep a pulse on the situations of people. But for the most part, I use it for growth. There's a lot of fucking good information on there. A lot of people talk negative about, so it's a part of our world. It is what it is. So use it as a positive tool.
That's what I use Instagram for.
But yeah, focus on those things. People, they ask me like, how in the fuck did you beat this? How did you and your wife figure out how to not get to divorce and how to not separate? And how did you come out of that fucking massive depression? It's like, dude, that relationship with myself first and foremost, and then defining the most important valued relationships in my life and what the tasks that I was executing on daily meant towards those. Are they adding to those relationships, or are they taking away? So my purpose as in gym started to take away from the things that my actual purpose, the relationships in my life that I valued. Yeah. So I had to get rid of it. Most people have been like, that's your purpose in life. You just have to fucking figure it out and grind through. It's like, no, man, it's not. It wasn't it. Those relationships were, and all the ones that were important to me in that world moved on. What was good for them, and don't want to say fell apart because it's not like they're dead to me. But, that's where I started. It's where I've always found myself. Those were the basic truths. I have to be connected to my own shit first. And I have to be honest about it. I can't be like, oh, and you mentioned that I tried to convince myself of certain things. And I was like, don't convince yourself of the truth. Find the actual brutal, honest truth about it. And you'll be surprised on what you find there, on why your behaviors are what they are, how you've gotten to where you are, how your relationships became damaged and broken as you see them now. And are you making them worse than they actually really are because you never even had a conversation about it. So that's where I would always, at least where I tell people to start is like, and this it's not going to work for everybody. The human condition is too complex for it to be like, fucking Dave Hall's philosophy and the way he got through life is going to be, that's the shit that's going to, but there are foundations in there that you can't ignore.
Yeah.
You can't get away from them, man. You can't get away from, if you don't honor your body, you're going to have a harder time at life.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. If you don't understand and try to figure out what your emotions are, you're going to have a hard time in life. You just are. Try to ignore them all you want. They're there. They exist. You create them. Society creates them. Culture creates them. And then, you define them and label them as they are in the way they're your own shit. And then if you don't seek knowledge on different perspectives and different techniques on how to deal with them, you're going to struggle. So for me, I think without those basic commonalities across just about anybody that's like, look, dude, this is how I got from low points to high points, you're going to see a lot of those commonalities in everybody.
Yeah. You had I don't know, you had a year almost, I don't even know. You tell me if my time frame's off, but you had a long time of personal growth before you had to deal with the relationship issues. And I feel like that was super beneficial and set you up in the right direction. And then, like, even when you were making the decisions around leaving the gyms, my first reaction was like grief over that going away. And my second reaction was, he's going to regret this. This is just like something he's doing because of emotion and he's going to regret it. And it was the best thing you could have done for yourself.
Yeah, and that's the thing that people say, don't make decisions based on emotions. What? What? Huh?
We always make decisions based on emotions.
Emotions coincide with intuition.
Yeah.
And logical and rational fall in another category. And you can call emotions, limbic, and you can call rational the cortex.
Yeah.
You can argue biology all you want, but one drives the other. And I hate to break the news to you, but basic human needs, which revolve around emotion, which is the limbic system, drive human behavior. Very rarely is it 100% rational. Yeah. It's just not.
Yep.
So good luck trying to ignore those emotions and not make decisions based on emotions. I think you need to find the right balance between your intuition, your emotions, your rational and your logical thinking.
Yeah.
Make decisions based on that.
Yeah. Your gut feeling is influenced by a lot of things that you probably aren't processing.
Well, there's subconscious. It's a subconscious accumulation of experiences in your life that you have a feeling of what the right answer is based on specific outcomes that you've already experienced.
Yeah.
You just ignored them. So anyways, we can go in circles on that all day. But man, we crushed that one. That was a long one.
Was it long?
Yeah, you never know how long these are because we're like trapped in this little thing.
I know.
Well, thanks for coming to hang, and
thanks for having me.
Bethany's going to be a normal. She's curious like me, and I enjoy the conversation with her because she makes me think about my own processes and the thoughts behind what I feel is automatic in my own life.
Yeah.
It's like, why is it automatic? Sometimes I don't know. I just know it's right. So you allow me to like explore that, and I appreciate that a lot.
And your perspective informs a lot of my life, so I appreciate it.
All right, anybody that made it this far, man, I'm extremely grateful that for anybody that's even taking the time to listen to 10 minutes of this thing, let alone almost 3 hours.
3 hours, seriously?
Yeah, it was close. We had a good one there. Again, super grateful for anybody that's even willing to listen to any of the bullshit that comes out of my mouth. So thanks for that. See ya.